Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again. We are live. We're live on TikTok. We're live on everything else that's over here and in the studio. Today's going to be a crazy one. You know, I have my Alice in Wonderland peeling back the Matrix sweatshirt on today because for those of you that were all excited, today was supposed to be the big one. We were going to officially finally have the Sophia Stewart on. But that being said, you know, we had a quick audible. Our thoughts and prayers are with her as she recovers from an emergency procedure. That being said, we audible to a great topic for you today. Today we're discussing it's all rigged. We're starting with sports, even numbers, statistics and analysis, science is rigged, and even the legal system is rigged. So, you know, we'll go through them all, parse them apart. That being said, let me introduce my co-host and my good friend, David Cunningham.
Well, hey, it's good to be here. You know, it's a real shame we don't have Sophia Stewart on today, but I'm telling you what, I think the wait's really going to be worth it on this one. She is going to be a captivating person for this show. So we're real excited. You know, give her best wishes. I think she's recovering well from the surgery. You kind of left it off a little ominous tone there, but she's going to be all right. She's going to be just fine. But you know who's doing even better than Sophia Stewart right now? Our man behind the keyboard, Brian. How are we doing?
Doing well. Yeah, thoughts and prayers for Sophia. And I am, yeah, okay. We're going to start the show.
I caught you off guard.
Out of the three of us, it definitely seems like, did this lady die? Like, that really made it worse. Thoughts and prayers. Listen, we're here. Anyway, that being said, it's all rigged. To start the topic off, though, before we bring it in, Ricky, we're starting off with sports. And to bring in the left wing, in the green room right now, let's bring in our good buddy from Just Another Day TV, Ricardo Wright. How we doing, Ricky?
What up, squad? Glad to be here, man. Glad to be here.
Hey.
How you doing, fellas?
What do you any thoughts off the top of your head right now when we introduce the topic sports are rigged?
I don't believe sport. It's basketball. I can see it with refs, but overall sports is kind of hard to rig it to get everyone aligned. And no one been telling it a T.
Let me pry why. Because I think your position here might actually aid me in presenting my argument that there is. So why would it be hard to rig athletes or competition itself?
There's so many players at hand. I understand if you have the refs that's behind, like, it's only so many refs. It's less. You have them behind an NDA or whatever they're being played for years and years. But to all the players be a part of this, especially like the top player, like a quarterback, and that stain is going to be on their name and face and reputation for so like it, especially like a city like Cleveland. Imagine Watson bring us to the playoffs and we hear he got paid by the mob. 2 years down the line,
will come out only when the Browns win.
You know, I was like, then it's gonna be like, yo, this guy is gonna be not only Browns or Cleveland people are gonna hate him, but America is gonna look his anywhere he goes in the world. His reputation is gonna be, oh, the guy that set up sports. Like you can't trust this guy. He had any dispute by a cop, anything. You can't trust this fella. You know what I mean? Like O.J. Simpson.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah,
right.
Different, but you know,
you like the legal system. That's the
exactly. But you can't trust OJ no matter what he says.
He's got that killer instinct in him.
Facts. But it's really hard to rig sports, man. Basketball, I can see where you say the refs, okay, make these calls and try to make the variable. Like the other day, I thought the NBA was rigged when Golden State and the Lakers were playing, and they gave the Lakers like 40 free throws to the Golden State 6 free throws, and the Lakers still end up winning by 1. They still won, but it's so much that goes into it. The other team is not a part of this, or whoever you're trying to favor is not a part of this. And what if they switch team? It's gonna come out. It should be out. It would have been out. It's just hard. Only one time we heard about this in the NBA ref back in the day that was being paid by the mob.
Totally. I think that's a great launching off point. So that being said, David, I'm going to introduce it, but what are your thoughts before I kind of?
So I think, oh boy. So let's start with the NFL, because that's we got the big game, the Super Bowl coming up here. And there's been a lot of consternation, a lot of talk. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce, Pfizer. It's all part of one big triangle to try to get them to the Super Bowl to win, to add some viewership. And when you look at it, it's kind of what we call a bumper sticker logic. You see it on the front end. It's like, oh, well, of course the NFL wants Taylor Swift to be more involved because she brings in some women viewership. And I don't think it is no secret that the NFL is trying to get more women involved into the sport and watching the sport. We see that with the Super Bowl halftime show. It's geared towards women more than it is men, because men are already watching it. So how can you get the wives, the girlfriends, the daughters, all of them involved to watch? And Taylor Swift just seems to be a lightning bolt to be able to get more women involved. So you see that on the front end, but on the back end, it starts to break down quite a bit and starts to become its own little silly conspiracy theory when you really drill down into the details. But
you think it's silly?
I think it's silly. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Now, are all sports rigged, or are all sports not rigged? Absolutely. We've seen like boxing historically had some fixing matches, but that's really on a smaller scale. So I think what Ricky put pretty well is that the more people you have involved, the more you got to pay off, which makes rigging the sport that much more difficult because there's just too many mouths to feed to keep everyone. With boxing, you pretty much have like three people. You have the boxers and then whoever the promoter puts it on. Just try to make it all work. Now, the NFL does a horrible job at presenting itself as a non-rigged league. So you have the Taylor Swift things. They come out and say, oh my God, Taylor Swift had all sorts of different and more ratings and all that. And then you have the gambling aspect with the NFL, which I think the NFL has taken just headfirst, dove into that pool of the gambling money. And when you see it promoted every single spot, everywhere, there's not a sports podcast you listen to that a DraftKings sponsorship, which we really need to get one of those, by the way.
Yeah, listen, for how much money those bastards are taking from me, the least they could do
sponsor just a little bit. Give me some free bets. Give me some $5 freebies. But you see that you just see it, and it's kind of the preponderance of the evidence. There's just too many different factors where you just kind of look at it and go, this seems just a little odd. The Chiefs are maybe a little bit too good, even when they sometimes look really bad. Taylor Swift, there's just too many factors. The NFL doesn't do a very good job at all at like getting rid of it. It's like, did you know refs are not full-time employees?
Elaborate.
Every ref's a part-time employee with the NFL. They're subcontractors.
Subcontractors. That's the word.
That's what they do. Probably once or twice a week. They go out there, they do some reffing, and that's it. Most of them are actually like lawyers.
That way they could, relinquish liability.
I think
if there's a compromised referee, they get to go, hey, well,
yeah,
it's not ours. Oh my gosh, that company we contracted with, those bad guys.
Yeah, this person individually is bad, but as a whole, which if they were all internal employees, then you could probably say, hey, we have some standards. Or what the XFL did is they had, whenever the refs came up and huddled, they actually had them all mic'd, so you can hear what they're saying. And like how you have the coaches, you have the players, they're all they have the post-game press conference, pre-game press conferences. Refs have none of that. They show up, they're on TV for a little bit, and they leave. You barely know who they are. You have a little bit of a history if you try to just like track them, but they're not named outside of the head ref. Your line judge,
right? You
don't know whose name that is. So it doesn't help dispute that narrative.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
All right.
It's an oxymoron position to take the stance that sports are not rigged. However, there's instances that we just know socially of like referees in basketball, boxing you used as a specific example in your point. So you can't call it silly if in an instance, so now it's just how are we defining this claim or statement? rigged, right? Is it, do I believe that they're printing off a script and showing up in everybody's locker room across the entire NFL and going, so here it is. We're actually surprise guest in this season, Taylor Swift. Like, and we're gonna get the Chiefs to the. I don't think so. I don't think they're brought into the know. What you could easily do though is just pay off two people, and that's the coordinators, the defensive coordinator and the offensive coordinator. Because all you have to do is have every once in a while, periodically, an official play that's given to them by the powers that be. And it can be perfectly calculated to be a defensive stop that crushes the offense, or you can have a huge vulnerability in the defense here in the corner, and the offense is a perfectly calculated play to take advantage of that vulnerability that was calculated, unbeknownst to all the hardworking people on the base that feel this is all sound. But what's weird is the understand, like, okay, Ricky right off the bat goes, but the basketball, everything else, I'm here to fight for integrity, except with basketball. And that's the one sport where you literally have players going, you have to score double if you actually want to win when it's stacked against you. You're not gonna. And it's not that you can't, it's that, again, you'd have to score double simply because the refs are just that stacked against you. And again, you don't need every single ref. Okay, the blonde in the ponytail that's just standing on the line, that's not the referee that's pulling the back strings. More than, what do you do about a statistic where, okay, let's say the NFL did have an incentive in the Chiefs making it to the Super Bowl and not those pesky Ravens. Okay, well then, how convenient is it that they chose a head referee that his statistics are like 75% the home team loses? It's like, oh, well, that's convenient. That's convenient when you need the home team to lose. So I don't think everybody needs to be in it. At the same time, though, I do want to make the silly argument a little bit.
All right.
Because I've got video evidence. My main man behind the keyboard there has things queued up for us that I bring up a curious case. Why I thought Ricky's position was such a great way to kind of, launch pad the point is he's like, these are competitive people. Their nature has been forever to compete to the end, and they're not going to give it up. And then you got to get all of them to sign up to be in on it and keep the secret. I don't think you need everybody, but also if that's the spirit of the point, these videos must seem very peculiar when an ultra competitive person who's on the line in the playoffs, for whatever reason, gives up mid-play or doesn't lay out the quarterback or turns around. Brian, let's start with rigged video 1.
I think I know which plays you're
Yeah, you've probably seen a bunch of these, but there's definitely. All right, this is the main one. This really kicked off the conspiracies, right? He just turns.
This one's hard to defend.
The choice was, instead of tackling Patrick Mahomes, I'm going into the blocker. What, right? Okay, lay you out, man on man, open field. I choose to be blocked.
Yeah.
What? Come on, where's the silly?
But this is a random game.
Now,
wait, hold on. What, Ricky?
That's just a random game. Like,
that was earlier this season.
Yeah, that's Denver Broncos. I never expected the Chiefs to lose to the Broncos, and the Broncos wasn't good. Maybe they just don't have good thinking players on their team.
I can't necessarily defend that play, but I think we're missing context of what the score was and what position in the game was. Is this like second play of the first quarter? Is it
exactly?
So we're missing.
But the whole position of the argument before was that these are ultra competitive people. Why would they ever just turn away from ripping the head off of Kermit the Frog, the biggest sissy in the NFL that everybody wants to hit?
Hey, chill out, my homie.
So you see that play?
Play video 2. Play video 2. We got a couple here. Look at this.
Yeah, but
this is a huge game. Context.
No,
the Miami Chiefs game was huge.
Is this the cold
You're
one?
right.
This is the little chilly one.
Yep. So,
I
so we
thought he
do-
was about to go down and fake them out, just like Josh
Oh,
Allen did
you
with the
think that was a
Bills.
fake out?
Just like Josh Allen did with the Bills. He's going down. Look, he's trying to.
Ricky, you were
I'm
the
going
one
through.
faked out. You were
Look, he's
faked
sliding
out.
through. Been
Is
a
it
while.
also not reasonable to believe too that a bunch of players from the lower Florida, right in Miami, probably aren't best adapted at
My
playing
friend, come on. These are people that played high school and college, now in a professional level. This is not the first time they played in cold. And again, your whole position was that they're ultra competitive. This is for a touchdown to continue through the playoffs.
Yep.
You're just going to arm tackle. And that wasn't even an arm tackle. That was a
it was a sorry arm tackle, but arm tackles aren't. They're not.
that was
It's
a
not
hand tackle.
uncommon.
unusual in the game of football. It happens all the time. And you hear like, oh my god, the fucking defensive lineman can't tackle. He's just doing these arm tackles.
Bri, can you throw in video 3?
Yes, sir.
All right, watch right here.
All right, listen to this guy.
Yeah, yep, you're on, you're on.
The ref tells
Now
him,
he
you're
grabs
on the
first,
line. You're on the
grabs
line. You're
first,
good.
like
You're
right
good.
there. He's
Puts his
grabbing,
hand
he's grabbing right,
immediately.
boom.
Boom.
Oh my
He was
God,
ready
just
for
got
it.
hosed.
The referee literally set him
Yeah,
up for
and I
it.
was like,
He goes, yeah, you're good. You're good. Get on the line.
Told me.
Cheap.
Watch right here.
Yeah, that one's hard to
Yeah,
defend.
yep,
We're good.
you're on,
Yeah,
you're
we're
on.
good.
Yep.
Yep.
Hey,
And now he grabs first.
He did
grabs
inch a little
first
bit
flag
forward
right
As
after he
there.
said
soon as he
He's
tells
grabbing
him
right,
you're
boom.
good, grabs for his
so
flag.
was the
Oh,
call
no,
for
step back.
illegal motion because they both move, or was the call for
No,
not
dude,
in
it's
match
not even
line?
like they're midfield. They are literally on the goal line. How do you stop the Commanders from scoring when you don't want them to score? Easily. Put them over the line, consciously. Oh, I think we got one more, Bri.
The call was for him not being in the right spot.
Yeah, see? And you're setting
Okay,
them up
okay, I
for
got
fail.
you. Okay.
All right, these are 2 plays. All right, first, this is a huge game with the Jets. Runs right by him.
It happens. My dog Shifty.
My dog's shifty. Yeah.
Another cold game.
Watch this.
Yeah.
More arm tackles, man. More arm tackles.
Yeah, I think the cold game's a hard one to argue.
All right, the Jets
Against.
game is not cold. What's this? Big
That one's
play
not-
here. The game is tied.
He's
20
going
to
for the
20.
ball. He had
You
the
want
ball out there.
context
He
to
was going for
score?
the ball. He had the ball out there. He was trying to go for the ball.
Yeah.
Patrick was
Man.
teasing him.
Yeah. I
Why
think
would
if
you do
you're-
that when you got a free hit laying out the quarterback? Look at this. He should be dead right there. No,
Because he's a
Just be
cornerback.
that right there.
Cornerbacks
Nope.
don't hit like that.
Yeah, the penalties go against the quarterback.
I'm giving a big boo.
So here's so let me ask a question then. So if the league is rigged,
Rigged.
why is the Cowboys? Why have they not been to the
Why are they
Super
so
Bowl?
poopy? Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, hey, Jerry Jones would own that. That being
You
said,
think of all the teams they want to be in the Super Bowl. You think the Cowboys? You give them a bone every once in a while.
why are the Browns not in the Super Bowl, man? Okay, what's
It's-
up?
The Cowboys sell jerseys no matter what. They have the whole cheerleading squad. They have the fan base that
They've got boobies,
is
dude.
always going to be there. I think that they don't need to win a Super Bowl to sell.
And look at why would they let them win a Super Bowl if it literally strengthens your argument that much? Right there. Jerry Jones is like, I'll fall on the sword. Give me $1 billion for a Taylor Swift.
Well, so if we're looking at plays that seem a little obvious, you think that would be? You think the NFL wouldn't be? You think that's too obvious for the NFL based on some of the evidence you post over here?
I will give you that. I will give you that. Brian, do you have comments before I go in further?
Ricky actually had something before we
Yeah,
started the clip.
Just
Okay,
quick
what's up,
question.
what's up?
All right.
Is the UFC the only non-rig sport we have out here? Or is
Well,
all
so here's the
sport
thing.
across the line?
Okay, I think that's a good question because
'Cause-
it forces me to further articulate kind of the way I see it. My position is that I don't think any of them are like formally rigged.
No.
I think basketball could be pretty manipulated. That's
that one's sticky.
weird. Sums up with basketball. Aside from that, though, hockey, all these sports, I think they're true blood. You know, you've got real competitors. But that being said, there's I think on the podcast, my actual podcast, I think on this show before, when we've talked about sports being rigged,
Yep.
I've taken a pretty consistent position. I've always said, check the history, check the books. I've always said the problem, like take football. You have bred into the sport a penalty that is every play. Linemen are taught to hold, at least by its new definition. At the time, it wasn't holding. Grabbing somebody by their shoulder pads were just handles that you're taught to block with. Go for the shoulder pads. You get right up in there and you grab it. Well, what's convenient is now that's illegal. Well, I've said forever, what I think it is they have a culture of there's penalties every play, and they can just decide when it benefits them most to call it and not to call it. Brian, can you play the Tom Brady clip? So we got one more clip. It's an audio clip. It's Tom Brady.
Everything with Brady is rigged.
ESPN, and ironically, he presents it exactly how I've had in the past.
There is holding on every single play. Now look, are you allowed to hold? No, you're not. It's against the rules. Is there holding by the offensive line and defensive line on every play? Yes.
So exactly, there's holding every single play, and they could just pick and choose to call it or to not call it. So again, I don't think it's everybody gets a Hollywood script at the beginning of the season, and this is how it plays out. But in basketball, you can have just independent actors, right? Pick a 30 for 30 where it's a basketball referee that was involved with the mob, like as Ricky brought up earlier. But I do think it happens, right? Like look at like the Olympics. You could easily manipulate a judge, just one judge, right? Like one judge gets paid off by Russia, or like, how about, there's that instance where Russia was caught in the Olympics with the doping. And how many people looked the other way before somebody found a false mirror in the bathroom where they did the drug test? And they're like, whoa. Like, how many people found that mirror before that or were paid to look away from the mirror and accepted it?
Yeah, no, I think there's...
So that's not silly, because you concede the fact that these do exist. To what degree is the real question?
Yeah, and I think it's silly to think the league in itself is rigged. I think it'd also be at the same time, it'd also be silly to say the league doesn't have preferences on who wins and who loses or how outcomes go. And I think that's just in general, because NFL at the end of the day is a business. So, and you want your business to be successful by having the outcomes you think is going to be the most beneficial to you. So could you consider it rigging if you enforce a rule or penalty, maybe not even on the field of play, but just like enforcing there's all sorts of different, like doping standards. Like, well, we're just going to put a blind eye to this one because Tom Brady's great, or because, Peyton Manning came out and had the HGH issue. He had the human growth hormone right in his last year. And not a whole lot really happened with that, because it's probably better off for Peyton Manning to ride off into the sunset.
Not to mention, like, what's funny is if he wasn't playing football, like a man his age would just be getting TRT, right? Testosterone replacement therapy. Yeah. So like there's something interesting to like, why? Because he's an athlete. I mean, hyperbolic point, get the bigs roided up again. Like sports went down the drain when we couldn't let people be their maximum specimen. Like I agree, we don't need hearts popping across the the
doesn't
fields.
Make for good television.
But at the same time, you know what it does? Just dingers, smashing dingers. That sells.
Baseball was better when it was roided.
It was so much better.
It's a lot more fun. Now, here's a sport that's, I can probably guarantee is not rigged: golf.
Yeah,
I don't think golf's rigged at all.
Rig
There's
that.
just no
you
way.
cannot rig golf. Trust me, I have friends that have tried. It was 2 shots to the green. 2 shots to the green.
It's the only sport I think I can think of that is not rigged. You see it right in front of you.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Brian, do we have any comments or anything that we need to flip to, or we can start wrap?
Bama Boy has been going off.
Oh, Bama Boy.
He's been talking about the one that got me was he may not have seen him. His vision was very limited in his helmet. And he's been talking a lot about the refs having money on the games.
Yeah, easily. If DraftKings exists,
I mean,
I don't even need to have an account. My dad does.
Yeah,
sue me.
Best friend, someone someone really not even that related to you. You can just have a business partner.
I want to know
And
which of Gene Sterator's lineage has DraftKings accounts.
Well, okay. So here's a story I just thought of. Have you heard about the Alabama baseball rigging story?
No, lay it on me.
So, college baseball, Alabama. The coach had a friend, and the friend, big gambler. He was, he liked to dabble. He liked to go to, he liked to go to baseball. You can just go to a ballpark, and and just gamble right there because they have gambling stations over there. So
Right there in the park?
right there in the park.
Yeah.
So the Alabama coach told his buddy, "Hey, we're playing LSU tomorrow. Our pitcher's out. Do that info what you will." And the guy gambling goes up to the sports counter, and he places quite a significant bet on LSU. And the sports counter person goes, "Oh, that's weird. We're at a professional baseball game. Why are you betting on this?" And he's like, takes out his phone, shows the sports counter person, look at the hot tip I got from the Alabama coach. And well, wouldn't you know it, the person at the counter reported him.
Oh my gosh.
The dumbest story. Just keep it to yourself. But no.
So think about that though, dude. How many people aren't that dumb and do keep it to themselves?
Yeah.
I got to imagine not a small number.
It's like when the lines move on like Vegas, like it was one like a while ago. It was like USC versus like Washington back in like 2018, 2019, something like that. Washington was on fire, doing great. USC, not a good year. The line comes out. It's like USC -3. It's like, what the hell? How are they I have like no wins, and Washington's the underdog in this game. Turns out they blew out Washington. So Vegas, they don't build those houses in Vegas, or they don't build the hotels in Vegas for nothing.
That's a great
Yeah,
point,
the
too.
house always wins one way or another.
Well, hey, does Ricky want to come in? Is that what you were signaling me? What is purple?
Purple is the bring in Ricky, but he canceled his. Oh, we're good.
Oh, there he is.
Bring him
All
back
right.
in.
Yeah.
Ricky, what
I'm
are you
just
doing
saying.
over here?
Oh,
Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm just saying, there's holding on every football play. You're right. But there's egregious holding when you see someone hug someone and throw them down, or out there hold it. There's a difference. It gets called against our brownies all the time, but you know the difference between they ain't gonna call it in
Ricky,
here.
Here's where
Don't start sumoing.
So my hard time is this. If you look at the stadium, right? Like in a far corner in the middle of nowhere, the 5-yard line, somewhere just like lost in the top abyss of the stadium. Some dude throws a beer at a guy and punches him. Well, guess what? They have the ability to get that person's face, scan it to find out who it is, hunt down exactly that exact scenario. I just find it funny. You could literally locate that person and their social security number, but the referee just happened to miss the biggest hold, like you just said, the super egregious one where it's a big bear hug. He just happened to miss that one, but we don't even miss in the top right corner of the top bowl of the nosebleeds, the guy who's smoking a cigarette in a stadium where he's not allowed.
Yeah, or you have you just can't get the camera angle right enough to be able to
convenient.
overturn that play. That's weird. There's cameras all over the place. Those I never liked those. And they stopped showing live replay in the
In stadiums.
They stopped
Because
showing
they
them.
don't want us riding. They know they're full of That's
Makes
another
sense.
piece. Come on, how does that
I
not
can't
further my
keep giving
point?
you information here.
You know that we can't, like you, the stadium.
The they.
You know you can't provide me the live feed because we are going to go crazy. We're going to go apeshit in here.
Well, we don't want another dime beer night.
But that's good on
Exactly.
TV. When you hear them fans on TV going boo like that, and you're at home watching, that brings atmosphere in the living room. You know what I mean? I like that. Like we don't mind that.
That's right. Do you remember the Browns game where they all threw like beer bottles on the stadium?
Yeah.
Do you guys remember?
And the Eagles game when they snowballed the refs out of the stadium.
Yeah, another bad call. Who would have thought? Here's my bottle.
That's why they stopped throwing. That's why they stopped serving glass in these stadiums.
Yeah, seriously.
Became a hazard.
Makes sense.
Or they have to make sure to open the cans or bottles before they
Yes.
give it to you. Unless you get
Yep.
a cool vendor who will like look the other way because you're carrying 4 and they know it's easier.
Those
to
vendors
not
are always
open.
the best. Is that I don't need you to open it for me. I can open myself, but I get why.
Well,
they do
usually
that.
they'll just say like, "No, I want to open myself." To say okay, and as long as you do the little pop, you don't have to open it all the way. As long as they hear the
Got a little
like just the pop,
Just so it gets flat when you go to drink it.
But then at least it doesn't spill as you're carrying it.
Sure, but here's the biggest thing. Do they just like anticipate all beer drinkers to not know basic physics? Keep your cap. Momentum is going to spin this bitch right down there. Like I could get this bottle
especially you got
down
the
there
neck.
without a cap. I don't need your cap. Right? Do you understand physics? I can take this cap off and hit Brian.
Can't you just
But
bring
then
your
I
own
would hurt
cap
my
with you?
computer. I don't care about the
You just bring
Brian.
your,
Yeah, I
you
feel
just bring
safe
your own
over here.
cap. They're gonna search. They're gonna scan you. Like, what's this? Oh, just a beer cap. Okay, I'll let you through. Just put that bitch on. You can throw it. Security a little lackadaisical anymore.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. They're letting a dog get a couple of them with their caps. But heaven forbid I get one cap. Brian, any comments before we introduce our wrapping thoughts?
Nope. Nope, we're good over here.
All right. That being said, let me wrap up my thought. I am not going to sit here and pretend that there is some giant concocted system with everybody in the know. But I do think there's many mechanisms at which this can be accomplished without being even the highest competitors or the coaches on the field or many of the people involved being aware of it. You can just have a couple independent actors like referees or those type of situations, or you could have a more orchestrated system, but only a few people are in the know. I think there's a hard way for you to crack the offensive coordinator situation. They're in a box away from the whole thing. They're not on TV. They're not away. They're not near the team. Here's 20 grand. I need you to do a man-on-man coverage instead of zone. And that's going to open up the hole right here in the middle, and we're dumping it. Like it's easy to accomplish that when you see the numbers they're racking in. Like when we say money is no object, like if you had the GDP of Yemen, you could say that, and that's a starving country. The NFL buries that. They're like a second to third world, first world country.
Yep.
So yeah, if they want to pay off 64 coaches in a box, they easily could without anybody's knowledge. But then something else that I didn't bring up, I just think it's cute. We know of the technology where we put speakers in the quarterback's helmets so the coaches can talk right down to them.
Yep.
But we find it just so outlandish for that technology to be found in the other players' helmets where they could just go 10 grand, turn around right now. And he just doesn't make the tackle. Like, yeah, and I'll shut up because I'm getting 10 grand. Like I'm buying my kid a pool. Like there's something there's a way to carry it out. And I'm gonna wrap my point on this.
All right.
Your premise, at least to me, was a major concession. While you bolster the position that claiming it's rigged is silly, really what you mean to say, and that's where we get lost in definitions, is that saying everything is rigged totally or calculated is silly, but you admit through your whole premise that things are rigged, whether it's just a referee or a boxing ump or whatever's going on. Besides golf, because I agree with you there, I don't think you're going to find an outward expression of it being rigged, but also you admit there are cases, small cases. It's kind of like the election, right? Like no one's going to say it was stolen, but there was problems, right? There were machines that were counting things wrong. I imagine there were some people that turned in mail-in ballots for their dead grandma. Those probably did happen. Was it enough to change the outcome? No, or nobody's going to take on that position. But you also would be just as silly to say there was 0%, 0.00% of any of that meddling. So we know it is. We know there's meddling. The question just begs to what degree. Do I think it's 100%? Do I think it's totally no? But I don't think it's completely absent.
Well, yes, it's probably not completely absent, but I think at that point we're talking a little bit more conspiracy versus rigged. where it's just if it's
Sure,
if
yeah,
it's a
boom.
cabal of a couple people. But again,
I like that.
I think to your point, I'm also surprised. I'm going to add one more little bullet in your chamber here for this. Instead of, I think it'd be a lot cheaper to rig the kicker, game-winning field goal. So hey, buddy,
Beat cabal.
you get $100,000 just wide right,
Boom.
just wide right, easy.
A guy that knows how to put it exactly where he needs to.
Yep. You don't even have to design a play for that. Just say, all right, buddy, take it out. You're good. How many games have been decided by a kick? How many of them been decided by someone making a phone call and let them know? But I think the logistics of that are actually fairly difficult. Because on a sideline, it's hard to get that style of information. Maybe you have the helmet speaker, but it's I would feel the NFL would have a ton to lose if it ever came out that there was any sort of conspiracy of rigging amongst players and coaches. You just don't see that. You see like glimpses, and again, I just don't think the NFL does a very good job of dispelling these rumors. Part of the reason just could be like, hey, more people are talking about the NFL being rigged is more people talking about the NFL. So it's what's good for the goose, good for the gander.
Wow.
So that's it. And it's you see the conspiracy theories, and that's where I really find it's just super duper silly. It's like, okay, all right, it's no, the NFL, yes, the NFL wants Taylor Swift to be at the Super Bowl. No, the NFL is not trying to rig the Chiefs to win yet another game because Patrick Mahomes just seems like whatever team plays the Chiefs just kind of loses. The Baltimore Ravens, one of the best running teams in the NFL this year. Stopped running the ball against the Chiefs, who didn't have a great rush defense.
Some would say that's a convenient way to get off the coordinator.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'm really doing a whole lot to dispel some of your rumors here, but definitely I still believe in the integrity of this sport and this game. Ricky, what do you think? Am I crazy?
I love the kicker thought, but either
I agree.
kick for the next 10 years for 10 million, or miss this one kick in the playoff for us, we give you 2 million, and you may not ever be signed again.
Well,
Because no coach is gonna.
Yeah.
It's worth two in the bush.
Oh, that's very true.
It is
Okay,
worth
okay.
2 in the bush.
But it's like my legacy. I can create a legacy even with the growing it, being this great kicker over time, or just squander out because I have this 2 million in my hand. Something
There
you've
is
been
something
working
there.
for your whole life.
I don't.
And it's probably untaxed.
Yeah, you know what? Ricky's got an even bigger point. I love that, Ricky. No, I was playing it out in my head. Like, hey, so I go, my retort was gonna be, hey, you could get a Phil Dawson to do that once or twice and still be a legend, still be a great. But the reality is, to do it once or twice isn't enough to make it financially advantageous.
No.
And so for you to make a career of getting this miss a kick bonus, now you're a schlub, like Ricky said. You're not going to be in the league very long. So you can't even make a career of the bonus if there were one. I like that point, Ricky.
Yeah.
Before we pass it to Doug, any other thoughts?
Oh, no.
All
All
right.
right, Dougie.
So someone at one point mentioned like some league where they had the refs together with the microphone. I think the NFL needs to do a sky judge where they can call things after the play. Like, oh, this person missed that egregious hold. And if we can see it on replay, there's no excuse for that sky judge not to call it. Like
I
XFL
agree.
or AFL did that. They had like a sky judge that could call stuff.
The XFL let fans get involved in that. That was even cooler.
Yeah. And then
Why didn't that grow legs, the XFL?
Well,
because the
it's-
pandemic
yeah,
also
pretty
hurt
much.
it too. Like all those
Yeah,
other
it really
leagues,
did.
the pandemic pretty
I
much
went to an
shut them down.
XFL game during the pandemic, ironically, in DC. Our big moose.
Oh, you were a DC defender?
Who's the Buckeye quarterback? Gosh darn it.
Cardell Jones.
Cardell Jones was the quarterback. It was great. It was such an awesome time. And it was that game. It was because it was the beginning of the season. The XFL started the trend where they were stacking all the beer cups and they got it to go up like the whole
yeah.
side. And then other teams started doing it. And then other leagues started doing it. And then baseball took it over. Now, like, besides the XFL, that's like completely illegal. Like they watch it like a hawk and snip it in the. It's like, why? It sells you so many more beers. It's harmless and it's fun. So they got in the way of that. But ironically, we went during the pandemic. It was weird. Like, it was a ghost zone, and we're in DC. This was like 2 weeks into the pandemic, so it was like half there. Like, okay, they did not lock down the world yet. In 5 days, they were going to. So, like, everybody was worried about the pandemic. Periodically, you're seeing schools closing and stuff. It wasn't like official. So, like, the stadium was like kind of eerie. People had masks on, but people didn't because it was kind of still a very new concept. There was no Fauci yet to call for masks, but like, it was eerie. And it's sad. I forgot, like, that definitely was what brought down the XFL.
Absolutely.
Because I'm sorry, and the level of competition. The reality is the level of competition doesn't come near the NFL.
But the AFL had some pretty decent people, or whatever that other.
You're right.
AFL
You're right.
Is AFL?
Yeah,
You're right.
They had some decent people, and I actually enjoyed watching them because they would play when the NFL wasn't playing too.
right.
Which is why they got screwed over the most by the pandemic, because they had their season starting, and then March everything shut down, and they just couldn't recover from that.
All right, Ricky.
Well, Doug, the golden man, nothing to worry about, and the people. The USFL and the AFL join together, and they'll be here this spring.
Hey,
Nice.
now
It's
that
good
will
stuff.
be fun.
Football is
'cause
here,
didn't
man.
The Rock buy the
Football is here.
XFL?
He did.
Yes,
And
sir.
Yes.
So it's coming
And they
back.
signed
yeah?
with ESPN as well. So we'll begin some, ESPN games. I don't know what time that will be, but around
Oh,
spring
sweet.
training
We'll
time,
have spring football this year.
I love that.
which is
I love
nice.
that.
Which
Well,
is
it doesn't
nice.
end this Sunday.
Hey,
Which is nice.
so that
It's
being
good
said,
marketing.
it's
know.
good. It was great marketing. Brian, random thought.
Oh, I still had a couple more.
Yes.
Oh, Doug's got more. Doug's got more.
Doug's got more.
Lock
let
in,
it,
Doug.
let it all out, Doug.
These are quick things. Action Bronson claims in the Mac Miller Red Dot song that he fixed the game between Kentucky and the Miami of Ohio. Let's all remember that. All right. It's in the song. He claims it.
Okay. All right.
Lastly, Gergiev brought up talking about
He
paying
claims-
off the
It's-
two coordinators. But then what happens when they become head coaches and know that their coordinator could be throwing the game? So that's
I
the
think
problem
they're
with
in
that.
on it too. I think
think the head
I just
coach
think you
would-
could get coaching staffs. I think the coaches just know. I think they just know. Listen, this is what I signed up for. This is the
Circus.
this is the circumstances of my job. Like, how about this? I sign up every day, and this is how it goes. This is how it goes. And every once in a while, my boss makes the executive decision above me to do something that I may not agree with. But guess what? That's how that goes. So at the same time, it's like I still like catching a check. This is a much better gig than, I don't know, Brexville head coach. So, like, I like being in the NFL. There's a prestige to this. I get to go to some Los Angeles party, and everybody goes, "Oh my God, it's that dude from the Seahawks." And guess what? Now I'm hanging out with Jamie Foxx in no other scenario other than I have a prestige of being on the big. The NFL has replaced church. This is the
Yeah.
Pope.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're-
absolutely.
like,
Sundays
you're
are
telling
for
me,
football.
wait,
Sundays
just
are
so
for
you know, the Pope knows they're lying to us. And he's like, but I'm still the Pope. Like, that's what comes with the territory. Any other?
I think kicker is probably the easiest,
That's probably the
best
easiest
option to
Yeah.
throw a game, in my opinion.
But
Coaches
I
is
think
risky.
Ricky, I
kicker.
love that. I like it. I
His
still,
point was great too.
I
though.
think that diffuses it all. Ricky's point,
There's
crushes
no
it.
good person to buy out though. Then essentially, because at some point they might
defenders, man. I think you could easily be like, don't lay him out. You do, you're not getting anything. You do, if you don't, I'm gonna send you $50,000.
Well, that's how receivers have so many drops. I just dropped it. How many drops the
How about
Ravens had?
this? I bet
Or-
you now they don't even pay him in $50,000. Tomorrow, I'll get you 500,000 Instagram followers.
Oh,
What was
That's
the
worth
buying
was
them
that?
clout.
I'll buy you clout.
These are
That
these
sounds-
are real ones,
Hey.
not the fake ones.
We could have your heart pop in the middle of a football game, and then we'll make you one of the most famous people, athlete of the year.
You didn't get comeback player of the year though.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Just take this little jab.
So okay.
All right.
The thing is, as David been saying, the integrity of the game, right?
That's right.
If any type of serious league come out about any of these sports, they're done. Especially that since they got in with betting.
That's a great point.
Like
That's a
they're
great
done. The league is over. The Saudis gonna come in here and create a new NBA.
point.
Live NFL.
Live NFL.
Yeah.
You never know.
hell.
Like it's I don't see it. Maybe one or two people may be trying to rig it on their own for their own Discord, but the league behind it, the owners, because the owners gotta get behind it as well.
Yeah, David really deflated a lot with the Jerry Jones point. The Cowboys would be winning a lot more. Jerry
Facts.
Jones runs the show. We
That
all know.
will-
that.
Jimmy Haslam
would be
wants to
America's
win
team.
too, you know?
Well, he is not Jerry Jones.
I don't think Jimmy Haslam's trying to start as Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is his own GM and his son. Jesus.
Sure.
Brian Rappin thought.
Yes. So I think that the lingerie league is not rigged in any way. So always got that to fall back on.
They have all the
and
camera angles.
I do like the
Somehow.
point.
They don't need to rig it. People show up no matter what for that game.
Yeah.
I do like the point about the kickers getting possibly paid off to end their career because it's an easy payout. And I wish they would bring the XFL, AFL, watchers into the stage.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
The
All right.
Skycam.
We still got two more series of rigged in this life. Let's get through this one. Okay, we're talking statistics, the numbers, analysis, science. It's rigged. I'm gonna pass it off to you, David, because mine's gonna be a long diatribe.
Oh boy. So like with any statistical analysis and with any sort of report that you want to throw out there, how many times do we see in media, in the news, or just your friend on TikTok or Twitter trying to tell you, well, this article says this, and it's based off this statistical analysis? You really almost have to start diving through and going through every single part of the statistical analysis before everyone reaches the same conclusion of the point here. So just like, well, let's use like a real easy one, like unemployment numbers. It's rigged. They're different numbers depending on what administration wants to paint as the best light. So people who are not looking for jobs are not unemployed because they're not looking for jobs. They're not. You think the unemployment rate would be counting for people who are out of work or do not have work now,
Or are lazy on the government's
Yeah.
teat.
Yeah, or at least people who are of working age that are not working. You know, I can't count a child or a toddler not working. That's not fair. But a 22-year-old who's not enrolled in a
How about
university,
a 30,
yeah.
a 40-year-old?
exactly.
We got plenty of them.
So like our unemployment rate's at like 3%. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. That's because they're not counting every single person. They're just using the best statistic to do it. And everyone does it on every single side. If you've ever been in an argument, if you ever tried to, try to clap back at someone on Twitter, you're always throwing your article up there with your source that says my number is better than your number. And I think what helps with this, with the theme of rigging here today is that there's some powerful, influential people that will use these numbers to be able to basically cram down their version of the truth for us. Because the truth is, it's not always black and white. It's a bit gray. And there's always certain, one of my other favorite examples is, well, remember when when there was a Stop Asian Hate in about a little 2020, 2021.
Yeah, why did they stop that?
And they kind of figured out who was hating on the Asians. And yikes. All right, well, we're going to stop doing that. Or like, or you go with like anti-Semitism, and they figure out, well, who's actually being the,
Oh my God, it's other Jews. What are we doing?
yeah,
No, I'm
it's
just
a real. When the story doesn't paint the picture you want to see, we tend to kind of look the other way if it doesn't hit our narrative. So I think you this is one of the few times we had the laptop out. So we're gonna dig deep here.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. So first, I want to start off by going through kind of like the history.
Yeah.
There's been a history of just known manipulation of science and knowledge and truth. So we know the tobacco industry. I mean, have you ever seen There's a great movie regarding the tobacco industry where it's like literally about lobbyists that were involved. Something about like pay me to smoke or something like that.
Oh,
Anyway.
sorry, Aaron Eckhart.
Yes.
I know what you're talking
Regardless,
about.
great movie, and it's all about how literally
Thank you for smoking. That's what
Thank
it
you for
was.
smoking.
Thank you for smoking.
Thank you for remembering.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Brian.
Oh, we put the clapper on. Hey, look at that. All right.
Magic
That was really cool, actually.
for something that didn't work before, and that was not like a
This was
Brian
not
by the light
planned.
switch. Okay, that being said, Thank You for Smoking was a great movie, and it shows how lobbyists at that time paid the government to hide science, create policies, protecting and hiding the dangers of cigarette smoking. They were even able to get doctors to lie on the behalf of the dangers of smoking. Oh, it's great for you. Oh, don't think about it while you're pregnant. And then we're sitting here with gargoyles that just have eyes larger than their, anyway. So the tobacco industry and their manipulation right through the 20th century. And that undermined the scientific consensus and used marketing strategies to downplay health risks, contributing to the continued use of tobacco and causing a widespread public health issue. The Lysenkoism in the Soviet Union, Lysenko, I don't know the guy's last name, I'm trying, was a Soviet scientist who pushed ideas in biology and science about through the Stalin regime that played upon the same kind of racist science that the Nazis do. So another example would also then be the Nazis, right? Where we collected a whole bunch of Jews and then put salt water in them to just see what would happen. And then we would do that. And then we lie about the science, right? Like that during that time to convince an entire country that these people weren't human. We needed to convince them that they were, again, gargoyle types in the night, they have wings that come out and like things that were so far from real. And okay, climate change. I don't know what the truth is in this regard anymore because for the longest time, science has been denied and supported and paid off and manipulated.
Over exaggerated.
Exactly. The lens we look through is always warped. And we don't even know how to measure this situation anymore because now the consensus is clearly, yes, climate change is here and it's coming, but it's not human intervention. It's God, it's nature, it's the world. And you're like, okay, like that wasn't the case 15 years ago. But then you want to start inquiring, what are some more present examples, things that are going on right now? So, I was shocked going to ChatGPT, asking it for present examples.
Ooh, okay.
It actually gave me COVID-19.
Oh, really?
It actually did.
That's a little surprising.
The boogeyman germ, I can't believe I said the name because it's going to get us in trouble with the big brothers that are helping us broadcast this amazing show. But the boogeyman germ saw instances where scientific data and health recommendations were politicized or disputed, influencing public health policies and measures. Different countries and regions experienced tensions between scientific advice and political decision-making, leading to varied responses to the pandemic. Accusations of either underplaying or exaggerating the severity of the virus for political ends have been made in various contexts. Wow. Didn't expect that from this liberal bias.
That's a very that's
but
very
then
thorough.
and then it brings up vaccine misinformation, and it gives us a spin about how those stupid people that are against vaccines just don't get what they're talking about. But the reality is, this is similar to the climate change that it also references next. Is okay, ChatGPT might have a biased presentation of this, but the reality is it's still a hung jury. I don't have a truth on this. I mean, I don't know if you listened to Robert Kennedy Jr. on Joe Rogan. He had some pretty convincing evidence as to why the government juices are worth at least being curious about. I'm not saying that the science should be thrown out in the baby because I'm throwing out the baby, but the reality is we still should have a curious eye towards it.
Absolutely.
Tech and social media algorithms. This was also provided to me.
This one's a real big one, too.
But check this out. This was given to me by an AI. Tech and social media algorithms. Let me read it. The ethical considerations and social societal impacts of algorithms and artificial intelligence are increasingly scrutinized. There are concerns about how these technologies might be used or manipulated for surveillance, spreading misinformation, or influencing public opinion and behavior without adequate transparency or oversight, conceded by the machine itself. Energy policies and fossil fuel interests, that kind of plays on climate change and everything else, but plastic pollution and recycling. The plastics and petroleum chemical industries have faced scrutiny over the promotion of recycling as the primary solution to plastic pollution. Check out Rethink Solutions to find out what you really should do about your recycling and plastic, despite evidence suggesting that a significant reduction in plastic production is also necessary. Critics argue that emphasizing recycling can shift responsibility away from producers and onto consumers, potentially misrepresenting the effectiveness of recycling in addressing the broader issue of plastic pollution. The AI is wrong here. Check out Rethink Solutions. Recycling ain't going to do anything.
Well,
for
let's
you.
just take another example. Like your carbon footprint. Remember, everyone had the number, the carbon footprint. What are you contributing to the planet and society? What we fail to probably recognize is what are you in relation to other people and other nations. We fail to. So when we say that the United States is a high polluter, we fail to recognize where the other high polluters are. And I think there's this kind of rigging of statistics to just kind of paint this picture. I think this is going to be the antithesis of the rare circle jerk we have on the Rethink Tank.
Ooh.
Where I think we're both in agreement on this here, that there's a lot of ways to showcase information and data that just shows, all right, this is exactly what I want you to think and feel based on this immutable characteristics of this information. I think even something as harmless as, so remember E85, that was a big push a while ago, back in like right around the Great Recession time, came out with that. I said, oh, it's better for the environment. It's wonderful for this. It's wonderful for that. And that's when we had hybrids also at the same time as well. But it turns out it's not better for the environment. You're still polluting the air. And in order to get the corn that turns into ethanol, you still have diesel tractors that roll through everywhere, and they're a little less regulated as far as like emission standards than your trucks are, I think for fair reasons. But to paint the picture that this specific thing right here, this specific car using E85 is less damaging to the environment than a regular car would be, I think is painting a bad picture. Same thing we see with electric cars,
Sure,
and hybrids. In order to get to the batteries, the cobalt, the lithium, the nickel, some of these other rare earth metals that come from the earth, we need to mine them in countries that have maybe looser regulations as far as carbon emissions, pollutants go, and they're a little less kind to the planet than we necessarily are here with our standards in the States. Again, paints a picture that, well, you're driving your car guilt-free. There's no emissions coming in the environment, but it's coming from somewhere. Maybe not even the electric. Let's just say you have 100% sunroof renewable energy placed right at your house. You're doing geothermal, you're doing everything correctly. But the batteries, and to be able to get to that technology, it leads to the result of being a net negative still. Now, is there a solution to that? Probably not. We still need to get around in vehicles. We still need to, participate in society and move commerce around. But I think there is a point when when we hear that electric cars are the future because of emissions and just emissions only, I don't think paints the rosiest picture.
right. One thing to also consider is like how in like the corporate sector, lying is just promoted under the guise of marketing. Well, that's just marketing. That's just marketing.
Oh, my
Lying
gosh.
and manipulation for the means of control. That's just marketing. It's a beautiful term. It's a term that we have a marketing budget. We put literally 40% of what we make every year into our marketing.
Oh yeah, or even like news agencies that call themselves entertainment versus actual news. Like you'll have commentators like
Yeah.
Rush Limbaugh, I think, was an entertainer, not a news person, not a news journalism. It's like, wow, boy, you're really peddling a lot of news and a lot of opinion, a lot of facts for someone who's just entertaining.
Yeah.
So the way you just kind of skew that lens and skew or what you want the people listening to it to perceive is just it is not great. Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob. Well, one last example that I do want to bring up before I go into kind of a bringing some solutions or offer some answers to this, I also want to really emphasize like the lead industry and lead poisoning. So there were, I don't know if do you know why you go to a gas pump and it emphasizes like an option of unleaded?
Unleaded, yep.
It's because there was such a huge time period where research on the harmful effects of lead exposure, especially in children, were systemically downplayed by the lead industry for much of the 20th century. Companies involved in producing lead-based products such as gasoline additives and paint funded research to cast doubt on links between lead exposure and health problems, delaying regulatory action and public health interventions. So like as long and again, what's the takeaway here? The root of all evil is always and has been money. So how can science itself even be rigged? So there's selective reporting of results, cherry picking data, publication of a bias. There's also misuse of statistical methods. So p-hacking, which is manipulating data analysis until non-significant findings appear significant, often by testing multiple hypotheses without proper correction or fishing for statistically significant results. And then also data dredging, which is performing many statistical tests on data without prior hypothesis, increasing the chance of finding at least one statistically significant result by chance. Thirdly, conflicts of interest. So funding a bias or personal or political agendas. Fourth, flawed peer-reviewed processes, lack of rigor, peer review manipulation. Fifthly, suppression or ignoring of contradictory evidence. So censorship, ignoring inconvenient data. Sixth, finally, misrepresentation of science to the public. So sensationalism is when the media reports can sometimes exaggerate or misrepresent scientific findings, leading to public misunderstanding, and then also just oversimplification. Oversimplifying complex scientific data can distort the public's understanding of the issues. And there's a real problem we have with scientific publications. So like right now, what do they say? They say, trust the science, trust the science. What have I, retorted on this podcast a billion times? If they call it the science, the problem is the word the. The second you put the word the in front of it, it's an indoctrination and no longer a process that we challenge and get to wrestle with. So, how do we create a system where we can trust science and trust this data? Or first, let me further articulate this problem. Yeah. So we have this problem with publications, right? So the landscape of scientific publishing has indeed evolved, with a significant portion of research output focusing on interpretations, reviews, meta-analysis, and theoretical perspectives rather than presenting new raw data. This shift reflects both complexities of modern science and the challenges of communicating scientific findings to a broad audience, including policymakers, the public, and other researchers. So some examples of situations and of these implications. So primary research articles. These articles represent original research data and findings. They include detailed methods, data analysis, results, and researchers' interpretations of their findings. This is the most fruitful. When they say trust the science or operate off of just the data, this is it. But the problem is, how do you get that? You don't. We don't. You're not Yale. So we don't get those offered to us and or accessible to us. What is accessible to us when you go to your university, the sham that they make it out to be, what you get to have unfettered access to that is just easily accessible is the next category, review articles. So instead of presenting new data, review articles synthesize existing research on particular topic, providing an overview of current understanding and identifying areas where further research is needed. Meta-analysis, a specific type of review that uses statistical methods to combine data from multiple studies on the same question to derive new insights or confirm existing knowledge. While this is a newer type of science, the problem is now you're relying on somebody else's tool and the fact that there isn't some bias that's calculated into that. And so you're just operating off of faith. Commentaries and opinion pieces. Those are also what we operate off of. We're operating off of, we're all title surfers. You're getting your information off of Facebook, and really they know, okay, here's an article about our international relationship with Kim Jong-un. Go on Facebook now and look for this. You'll see after every article, it says approximately 2-minute read, approximately 4-minute read. Guess what? Our relationship with Kim Jong-un now and 10 years ago was not a 4-minute read. So now we're all title surfers. And you know what's even funnier? If you actually did the homework and you go through and you're a reader, 90% of the time now, articles, especially from these liberal sources, but these articles that give you the data that push the narrative are almost completely reneged upon by the last sentence. You get by the last sentence and it's like, oh, well, what we really meant was this. It's not exactly that. And it's like the exact opposite of what the article title's trying to convince the public of. But, it's flashy, it's clickbaity, it gets their message across. So now we need to just have this wrestle between interpretations versus raw data and acknowledge that there's not much availability of that raw data. So there's a high importance to bringing attention to this, and the challenges and concerns that I raise are bias and misrepresentation, and there's a call and need for transparency and reproducibility that they guard against and try to, like, again, I'll believe whatever science you got as soon as you make it completely transparent, and me and all my pals can wrestle with it and get to the truth. I don't know.
I agree. The money, the initial money in any research is in the initial findings. And there's not the same amount of money or influence for just replicating that specific science, replicating that specific study to see what the different results might be. And like another thought I had as you're going through this here is a standardization of data. But that sounds good. That sounds sexy. That's like, ooh, let's standardize all data so everyone can really come together and understand what's going on. But, a different data set for one thing doesn't work for something else. Like, well, if I'm going to do temperature and I got to do, something that's like below freezing, that's not going to help for something I got to do that's super duper hot. But that might be a bad example. But there's always when you get into the weeds of something, there's just a specific data point that's kind of unique to the study in itself. And that's where I think if we had a way to standardize data and just make it applicable for most people, it would help. But that's also introducing getting everyone relevant statistics. And that's probably one of the more difficult courses. I struggle with statistics, especially in school. Wasn't my best subject. But I think there's a lot of ways we can kind of go about kind of looking at data and not taking every single theory, study, poll at face value. We have to have, and I think ChatGPT actually put it really eloquently. We need a kind of like a decentralization of all that, and just kind of an amalgamation of every single piece that comes together, at least of similar topics, and replication of that data, so that we're able to, at least as a population, understand why certain things are what they are when it comes to those studies.
That being said, Dougie is itching over here.
That hand's been up for a while. I'm surprised you're able to keep it up.
Because you guys, Alex made some, because Alex was just talking there. Alex made a lot of good points that made me think about other things. But really, I want to reply quickly to David. I hated my stats class.
Yeah,
I hated it.
Not a big fan of it either.
But Alex talking about stats, I work with data. My data is accounting data. It's numbers, but the data doesn't lie in my experience. It's the people who lie because they're putting in bad data, like purposely or unpurposely. And it's also like the method, like Alex said or David said, of how you do it. So the data is usually good. It's just, was the data put in good? Was the method of it good? Like, usually data doesn't lie. It's the person doing it or the way you're going about it that makes it lie. At least in my opinion there. But like Alex is talking about too, like opinions with data. A lot of the data we're hearing about nowadays is about the environmental data, like, electric cars and wind turbines and solar energy. Well, those all have their downside as well. They don't talk about it, but like, like E85 fuel, that cost a lot to make, more than gas, and it only burned a little bit cleaner than gasoline, which is kind of why it's not really a huge as much anymore. You don't really see them advertising it as much. Like before, it was all over the flex fuel cars. Ooh,
yeah.
but like solar, it can blind birds or kill birds. They fly into it or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
there's that. Wind turbines, they also like can kill birds and mess up the environment with their wind. That
make
they
a lot of
kick-
noise too.
Yeah, and then like there's like the water turbines that they use the water to generate power. Well, those kill fish and stuff all the time. So people, and then like we want to make this big push to electric cars. We live in Northeast Ohio here, and there's people with even worse winters than us. Okay, yeah, electric car might be great for the environment, but then how much are these northern states going to spend repairing that infrastructure, fixing the chargers, replacing batteries in these electric cars because they don't last as long in these cold states? Versus I know people who have run a Toyota gas engine car for 15 years. They run it into the ground. I doubt we'll be able to get a Tesla to run 15 years in Northeast Ohio.
Well, they haven't. I think only very few miles have been around 15 years, but those are collector items. But I think one thing when they post like the EPA mileage on electric cars, they take their kind of their gas system, the way they would test gas cars, and they would apply that to electric cars, which on the face of it looks good. It's like, oh yeah, well, we're going to compare it to a gas car, and to the consumer is going to be about the same. But there's a couple things that are way different. When it's cold outside, you cut almost anywhere from 40 to 50% of that battery just in half, just for it being cold, for no other fault of your own other than just the temperature outside. They fail to mention that in some of the data, because I think our other issue here, all three of us have, and probably Brian as well, is that we don't have the full set of data, the ebbs and flows, the pros and the cons. We only like to say the pros of the things we're studying, and the cons, on the other hand, are really ugly, but we don't want to say that out loud. And since we're the only person conducting this study, we might be able to either hide it, or maybe not even hide it, just bury it, just put it way back in the back. Anyone who's going to be reading this is going to take the charts, the graphs, and maybe some of the opinion pieces will have kind of sprinkle it all over, so it's never
Well, like you
congruent.
guys talked about lead stuff too. Like that was around forever. Lead paint, whatever. Asbestos too. I mean, God, that thing is still in houses to this day because it's a whole ordeal to get rid of it. So what they tell you is just coat it up and don't touch it. Like that's your best option if you live in a house with asbestos. Is if you want to do work on it, you're gonna have to kind of leave your house and clean it out completely because these fumes will kill you.
And we put it in everything.
Another thing with solar too that people don't think about, solar panels, like, okay, yeah, you put it on your house. Well, how much power is that really generating? How much land you need to actually generate enough solar power to actually power stuff? Like you would need the size of the state of Nevada to power California, probably.
Right.
I think some people would be pro that.
I agree. Let's pass it to Ricky.
Ricky.
So, all right, we go to data, right? I'm gonna try to keep out the keywords, but like the recent thing we just been out of every lockdown, like all that data from that was rigged. Like the deaths, the amount of people that had it, the efficiency of the
payouts,
the jabs, like everything have been about that past since 2020 for the 2 years was rigged. Fauci been lying about data since the 80s epidemic that was going on in the US.
Yeah,
bro.
he was a huge behind the AIDS situation.
Yeah, so anything that comes out of US government, I know this is kind of off topic, but like anything that comes out of like the CDC or the Food Drug Administration, you have to take eyes on it. Like there's a recall on Quaker Oats right now going on because it gets you sick. No one knows about it. It's not on CNN, nothing. I heard it on the Breakfast Club, so that's to show you like there's
they would be. They'd probably be a reliable source for all of your warning needs.
But the data coming out of most of the stuff ain't good, man. It's all when it comes to that, a lot of stuff I feel is rigged because they have a lot of people in their back pockets. That's where money goes, right?
Notice the root of all evil and the root of this whole problem and dialogue is money.
Yeah.
Like it's all incentivized and peddled by money.
Yeah. Well, all right. Here's a question. Since we had in the sports betting, I brought up a sport that probably wasn't rigged. What statistical kind of like company analysis do you think is not rigged? I got one in mind on my end. Want to see if we have the same thought.
Well, I'm going to be curious because I have to admit I've kind of lost my faith, right? Like I'm a broken man. One example I want to lean on for why is there was a scenario where they've been on Joe Rogan in the past. I can't remember their names, but two professors from two different universities. One was a math professor, one was a philosophy professor. They both started writing falsified journals. So like professors have to they have to write so many journals, and out of so many of them, they got to get like one published a year or something. And so you have to like write like 20 of them, 8 of them get picked for further consideration, and then like one of them may actually go forward for publication. Okay. And once they're chosen and added for publication, then they can be referenced in other university classrooms and integrated into now truth. And a peculiar element is these two guys, philosophy professor and a mathematics professor, they both falsified all of these journals for gender studies courses. The one that got published, they had like 8 of them published, and the one that was the most referenced in all Ivy League universities in their gender study courses was a journal on how dog parks make dogs gay. Okay. And it became this like ultra referenced journal to prove a science and sector of education in some of the highest levels of universities in this country. Then they came out and said, yeah, hey, it was totally falsified. We were a Trojan horse just to prove to you all that this is all BS. And now they were, what came of that? They were totally exiled from their profession, lost their life trying to prove a virtue for the sake of humanity, for the sake of our society. Now they don't have the ability to feed their family. And that is the back that our education system walks upon, right? So like,
what happened to peer review though? Like, how do people not catch it before publication? Isn't that
okay? I think peer review is a lot more founded and reliable in, a real science that is measurable.
Wow.
In a fiction, in something that is totally like, they're just looking for people to pat me on the back. Like, yeah. No, I think you could be a cat. You could be a cat. Put a litter box in the school. Like there's no science here. They know there's no science here. So they just are willing to grab at anything that furthers their point. I only say that because, okay, while maybe their math department is significantly more sound and reliable than their gender studies department, I do think this instance on now you have 2 university professors that were exiled by the rest of the professors. They lost their profession at the university, and now they don't have the ability to go forward with what they, educated themselves to spend the rest of their life doing. I don't know. To me, that's a reflection of the academic system, which is anything, math, science, history. So I want to believe that there's a sector like that in statistical analysis, but like, again, what are we talking about? I'm going to get to it, but like Doug said, data doesn't lie. Its analysis does. Yep. So to me, it's the people analyzing it. We love collecting data. What we hate is analytics because it tells us all the information that we don't like. And that's where the truth lies. But then also that analysis could be exactly what's manipulated. So I don't know. What do you have on top of
I have two things that I think are probably rock solid, not lies, that are, I'd say for the most part, given like the data they receive is true and the data they kind of output and communicate is also true. Insurance, mainly probably car insurance, house insurance, most insurance where it's basically based off of policies of things affecting you. So, like hurricanes, we see a lot of stories from Florida where you can't insure your house because you live in an area with too many hurricanes and the government's not going to subsidize that house anymore.
And that's because back to money, insurance relies on that
It
truth.
does.
So if insurance wasn't incentivized in ensuring that truth was true, I don't know if we'd actually have that truth either.
Exactly. So and also like car insurance too. Like men are
Oh, look, so
harder-
see both money again. Bing, 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 bing.
are harder to insure than women. You know, if you ever try to buy a Mustang, if you're under 20 years old, boy, it's very expensive.
That was
But
smart of
a-
you, David. I
as
give you that.
a,
That's
You
big.
can't
you know-
even rent a car if you're under 25.
Exactly, because you're just too much of a liability. But here's two things. So Corvette, much more exciting sports car than a Mustang, can get you in a lot more trouble. Significantly cheaper for you to insure as a 25-year-old.
So insurance statistics. That's
Statistics.
that's the answer, and I will give you that
Well,
because
there's the actuaries. They get paid a lot of money to
Yep.
calculate that stuff. And
Sure.
insurance statistics, that's probably more the most reliable because those are also like more of the smartest people. Like to become an actuary, you have to be so smart.
Yeah.
I mean, to pass the actuary like test, I mean, you have to be so smart. And like, I don't know, those people spent their lives devoted to data. I think they're doing probably the most reliable job at the insurance companies, right? You know, the salesperson trying to take your money from you at a higher price, you don't trust him. But the guy who's giving him the data, he's probably reliable.
Oh yeah.
right.
He spent his whole career trying to get to that point.
There's a
At least.
financial incentive to
So
be
again,
correct.
where Doug found the flaw in that chain is the interpreter.
Yeah.
Right. So it's access to the raw. Let me flip it. Do you got
I have one
Ricky or-
more. I have one more.
Okay.
I have
Oh,
one
I
more.
thought those were the two. I thought it was okay.
Well, and then post PD baseball statistics.
Performance enhancement.
Yep.
drugs.
Post that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sure.
No.
No, I don't agree.
You
I
don't
disagree.
agree with that?
You know,
Ah.
we've mentioned this in the past too, but this goes back to how sports are rigged. Because they got rid of the steroids in baseball.
Yeah.
It got a lot more boring for kids that are too addicted to their cell phones and they wanted more home runs. So Jason Verlander actually came out the year the Astros won the World Series and got called out for banging trash cans.
Yep.
Was the same year Jason Verlander came out and he said, I think they're doing something to the baseballs. He goes, I'm at the oldest I've ever been in my entire career, and I'm throwing harder than I've ever done in my life. That math doesn't check. And he was saying how the balls are different than they were in the past to increase the ability. So now they're throwing harder. That means the balls are coming out harder, and it's increasing the likelihood for home runs. So I even think you're finding manipulation there just in a different way. Instead of
Couldn't that be
syringes in
audited, though?
assholes, we have them, you just crazy baseballs.
Well, Alex, I want to bring you back to one of your earlier shows here real quick when we were
Oh,
talking
oh,
about
oh.
drunk driving and they want to add the things
Signs
to
on
the
the-
cars
yes.
and pass it on
no.
to the
Oh, yeah.
consumer.
Now you're gonna get me riled up.
Remember,
Doug.
we were talking statistics and what was it like? A
the amount of
couple
people
of
that
thousand deaths per year out of the millions of deaths in the United States. Of all the causes of death, drunk driving was like at the bottom of the list. Yet they're interpreting that. I mean, drunk driving is sad. We already talked about this.
Yeah.
It's not good to happen or to do it, but to try and force this extra cost onto us when the statistics show that it's really
It's
not the
insignificant.
highest cause of
It's-
death. It's insignificant. But their interpretation is this is too many deaths. Yes, it is, but it's passing on more cost to us because you don't like that, like the way to interpret that data. Like
Right.
the way to interpret that data. You think that's the
That's it
biggest
too.
thing.
It's not even manipulation of the data itself, but now
It's
the
your
result, it's
interpreting.
the result they
interpretation.
want too.
exactly.
We want to. It's all for control.
So let me flip it quick. Do you have comments for Ricky? I think Rick- I think Ricky
I
gave
got a
us
lot
a
to
wave.
say, but I'll let Ricky take the stage.
Ricky.
Oh, it's my turn. Just switch it.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, so I just was gonna bring up my biggest rig, and it was the music industry. How
Hey.
from
Okay,
CDs
alright.
to everything being digital, and they say like from every 10 is one sold record or something like. Don't quote me on the formula.
Yeah,
I'm
he's
just gonna
right.
throw it out there. Like every 10 is one sold track or something
I
like
know.
that.
I think it's every 100 plays on a streaming device, like a streaming platform, is one record sold.
See,
So
something
now-
like that.
You know
Yeah.
what a buddy at work told me?
What?
He goes,
Yeah.
if you, Ricky, me and you got to look into this, man. You and I got to look into this, especially if we got podcasts with RSS feeds already going into Spotify and everything else. My buddy at work said, if you made a song that was 2 minutes long or something and had one device playing it on repeat at 2 times speed all day, every day, you'd make like $5,000 every 2
So-
weeks.
I think
Yeah.
that's-
So that goes into
Yeah,
the
that
point.
sounds
Like,
like a pretty good,
Let's make a rethink song.
Dude, I
Just
wanted to
go
put my intro 30
rethink.
seconds, the 30-second intro, and just put it on. I have one of my old iPhones, just put it on repeat. But that goes back to Ricky's point. I sold no albums. I sold no
Facts.
albums.
Yeah.
But you're going to tell
Yep.
me 100 times after being at work for 30 minutes, I now have, or, you know, if I
Yeah,
did
that's a
30
fair-
seconds on
yeah.
2 times speed, every minute is 4 plays. And you're telling me in 25 minutes, I should have a record sold?
No, they're not.
I'll make a record with you if that's
so that's how it started. That's how it started. Then they moved to like bundles, and where like you buy the merch and buy the CD, it counts for more sales.
Oh my
So like the
gosh.
sales on the billboard and stuff like that is all rigged. You can't count on it. It's all inflated. You have the most like Universal and Republic and Warner, like they're paying for views on people, their artists'
Yeah.
Instagram. You can't even trust the newest artists now that say they're out of nowhere or anything. If they have any traction, they've been picked up and you have an engine behind them. And most of the time, their Instagram, TikTok, it's all fooled. I can be one to say you can fool the followers and shit like that. Like, so
not
it's
you.
the music industry is rigged. It's the biggest industry.
See,
I
that's
can
a
say
whole
bigger
nother
than
one.
sports right now
We even get into that. It's like,
because they can get up
not on
anyone.
radio?
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not a real thing.
Yeah,
That's
right.
not a real
They
thing.
Yeah,
pay for it.
You know what my mom told me when she was growing up? Like, you know, she was born in 1960. So she was telling me how she growing up in grade school, like high school, she was dating some guy that worked at a radio station. And he would just be like, yo, have your sister call. And, you know, they would get free trips. They would get, take a look at the camera.
Oh, not. But they would, you know, she get free trips. She get all this. What else? What?
Well, no, you just,
Oh,
it was manipulated.
Oh yeah.
I
Well, though, if you want to go,
Even the
manipulate,
players on
it's
radio are
still-
manipulated because you have the labels paying for the plays on the radios. You have the labels paying for the plays on the radios. You have them paying like certain people, like streamers nowadays, certain streamers to review the artist's music so their fan base can get onto the artist and of that sort. So it's been a slimy game ever since Michael Jackson, Prince, since the Beach Boys back in the day. And it's worse now because we don't know the real numbers behind anything. As back in the 90s, someone go buy a CD and you can only way you can tell by a real artist nowadays is their fan base. Start to say like a Taylor Swift or someone that can sell out a stadium and actually generate actual bodies is the way to tell if an artist is popping.
Well, yeah, we didn't
That's
even
right.
get into like social media statistics. Like where it used to be way
or
back
like
in the day-
Twitter, how Twitter got caught when they were trying to
Had bots.
inflate like their
Yeah.
worth,
Yeah.
and they said, you know, only like 5% are bots, and then it turned out to be like 80% bots.
It's all an incentive structure. Like old days of YouTube's all views. Now it's then it used to be watch time. Then it's engagement. Now it's watch time plus engagement. They continue to add incentive to a new type of interaction and then keep moving the goalposts when people start to game that interaction. But there's also the whole thing we didn't talk about, gaming the statistics, gaming the whole process to be able to benefit your viewpoint or your action. It's
No,
a
you're
real,
right.
Jesus.
Dougie, you were gonna say something,
You got
then Ricky cut you off. Otherwise, I'm gonna get into it.
I I don't remember.
This is your spotlight, Doug. Don't
I don't remember what I was saying. It was in response to
don't shrivel now.
you were saying, so I don't remember what it was.
Well, that being said, let's get into our wrapping thoughts.
All right.
So, the real question is, how do you make sense of the truth in a scenario where all of these things are a whirlwind around you? So, in summary, while a substantial portion of scientific publications today focus on interpretations of data rather than the raw data itself, this trend reflects the evolution of science communication in response to the growing complexity and volume of data. Ensuring the integrity and usefulness of these interpretations requires rigorous peer review, transparency, and methodologies, and open access to raw data for validation and further research. So one of the things that is a major takeaway from this that I've reiterated on numerous occasions in the past is this is the age of information. This is not, I'm sorry, we're no longer in the age of information. We are in the age of curation. And so that being said, there we go. That being said, we need to piggyback off of exactly what David was trying to elaborate, or, allude to, which is a major decentralization of this information. We can no longer be satisfied with getting the information through other people, others, agencies. We want the raw data and we want to evaluate itself. But like Doug said, data doesn't lie, the analysis does. And so while you want to be able to take on the analysis all yourself and be able to weigh all the truths and come to your own virtues, we also need to remember that we don't have what we want. While we want access to full data, would we really be able to read all of it? That's another piece to it too. So while yes, the data doesn't lie and it all comes down to its analysis, are we also equipped and able to analyze all of this all the time? It comes back to, operational science versus interpreted science. Like I operate off of a sun, a moon, a gravity, this thing being a ball. I'm willing to wrestle with other considerations and everything else, but I can't operate on that. We're not on a flat earth. That none of that science is something I can operate on.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can have fun philosophical dialogues and parse it apart, but the reality is we want to work with operable data, which is things that you can actually implement and operate off of in your day-to-day life. I don't know what the cell of the wall of a cell is like. I need a microscope to see and everything else, and it doesn't impact my day, my day-to-day. But at the same time, this is the balance. You're going to have to rely on people to interpret some of that data, but you shouldn't experience the entire life like that. There should be things that you seek out and become knowledgeable, and you'll see that knowledge is built off of in other fields and sectors in your life. And no, you're not going to be a master and expert in every sector, but that's why you have friends that are experts and masters in other sectors. Balance yourself off with colleagues and friends that you can trust. That no, I don't have to be, Doug, I don't have to be huge in statistical analysis, or Brian, erosion science. I can just have faith in Brian will
Corrosion.
interpret that. There you go. I'll just have faith in the fact that Brian can interpret that for me. But yeah, wrapping it's we're no longer in the age of information. We're too overwhelmed by information. It's everywhere. We have the full abundance of it. Now it's how do we properly curate that? And I think that is with the point you raised: decentralization and transparency.
Yep. I have a bit of a spicy analogy for how I want to wrap this up. So when I take like statistical data or just like studies, it's kind of like believe all women. No, I do not believe all women. But do I take all women seriously? Yes. Until you have evidence otherwise. And that's kind of how I approach like statistical data. You have to take it at face value for a little bit. You have to understand where the data is coming from, but you also have at the same time, like, well, I'm not believing you 100%. Let me take a look at what's going on here and see if I have any questions. The conclusion could be, hey, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. Yeah, males who drive Mustangs at 21 are probably more likely to crash than males at 50 who drive Corvettes. However, I need to be able to see that data, and because there's always a story to every data point. Sometimes the story is exactly the same every time, but sometimes it isn't. And when we start curating enough, and I think what you put very, very well is like when we start curating enough of those points where it's starting to build that narrative you want to see is when we should start to question, and when we should start to probably look at all their other sources for kind of that same information we're yearning for. There's no solution to this one because we have too much going at us right now. We have more information hitting our daily lives than probably it would kill a Victorian child. The amount of information we're getting today. So there is so there is we do have to trust some sources, but it's hard to trust anymore. You got to build that trust through several different vectors, and and sometimes it's not always the most profitable venture to be a trustful and a trustworthy source on data replication, data production, statistical analysis. It's some you got to bite the bullet sometimes, and some people just aren't willing to do that for the almighty dollar.
Ricky.
So only thing I have to say is I'm gonna try to remember this saying they used to say. They used to say, believe what you see and half what you hear, or something like that. Nowadays, you have to believe half what you see, do some research, and not hear half of what you say as well, and do more research. Everything out here is not set up for our best interests, no matter from the food, from social media, from the news. Anything they feed us is not always what it is. So you just always have to do like not a double take, but like a quadruple take on everything.
I
And
like that.
if you care enough about whatever it is.
Yeah, I feel that.
No, I like that. I like that.
That being said, Doug, did you have something? We're flipping it to Brian.
Other than I just love David's Victorian child comment, because if we even just put like a cell phone in front of them, they'd be like blown out of their seats.
They probably get depressed.
Why?
honestly,
I disagree. If you gave a child a
maybe
phone,
they
they'd
could
be
No, a
Magic.
Victorian
No,
child.
a
phone.
Victorian.
You gave a Victorian child a
They think it's
phone. They
magic.
it's oh yeah.
Sorcery.
I would be curious though. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that, only because I think a Victorian mother would think it's a witch and want you burned. But like there is something to the human nature with this like instinct and pawning for technology and its evolution that like your generation made the iPhone that your grandkid understands better than you. So like to me, there's an instinct there in our youth, in juvenile. Like, I don't know. I also at the same time they couldn't read. They were like, public dunces compared to what we are today. So you may be correct, but I'd be curious if there's a nature to it. Anyway, Brian, wrapping thoughts.
Yeah, I got a slew of them.
All right.
So I'm just gonna start spitballing. David, yes, the child labor laws, I think the statistics on those are rigged, especially in third world countries.
All right.
Hashtag third world problems. Alex, thank you for smoking. Also, The Case Against Sugar is a great book
Yep, that's
to
another good one.
emphasize
Yeah, we forgot. Good.
the dangers
bringing that
of
one up.
smoking. Doug, yes, I am not a fan of statistics either. Did you know that Hertz sold 20,000, or they're selling as of January 20th, 20,000 EV cars due to the high repair cost and weak demand?
So Brian, I'm
based on
actually
their customers?
looking at a rental car for an upcoming trip, and at the place I was going to rent, they have a Hertz, and they are pushing the Teslas hard there. But the cost is just more than getting a gas car. So why would I ever rent those?
Yeah. It's super inconvenient. How often do they drug test in the MLB, NFL? Is one of my questions as far as like the testosterone injections. And one thing I wanted to pull up was a article from the Sports Illustrated about the different balls that they were using, called dead balls, juice balls, and Goldilocks balls,
Huh.
in 2022 for the home runs. And There was a video that I saw that really emphasized this point, and he cut all the balls that were hit home runs in half, and it showed like the different materials that they were using. I don't have
Wow.
that video on me, but that one article really emphasizes that. Music industry, I think that is rigged, and especially based on who you know and who they know. I think, Ricky, that was a great point. Also, the food industry is very fake and rigged.
Yeah, he's got a
With
point with that
the red dye 40 is the hot
Yeah.
one.
But I
one.
feel
I thought
like
it was
we need
Yellow
some
5.
Doritos.
Wasn't Yellow 5 the big one? as well?
No, the red one's worse. But
Red
the
40.
yellow 5 is bad. Red is the worst.
I think Europe is really cracking down
Yeah. And
within the past like few years. and
or how
trying to-
about, did you see when the iPhone got outlawed in like London because
the
it was
iPhone 12 Pro.
radiation? Like it gives off radiation, and the radiation limits became illegal. Like it can only give off so much
You
radiation.
have an iPhone too, Alex.
Okay,
It was the
you're
iPhone 12
silly
Pro.
delusional to
I'd
think
be
that
worried
doesn't
about that
that
radiation.
Android isn't having the
Oh,
same
they absolutely
technology.
are. But that's
There's
scary
one.
that
There was
that
one
was
specific
reported.
model that was.
Yeah, that's scary that was reported.
That was the one that I
Right.
had for quite a while. So I just replaced that one. So if I start having any brain aneurysms here, it might
not be able to
it, it
kids
might be
based
due
on
to
it being in your
Apple.
pocket.
So
Brian, do you want? That's it.
That's I
all we
used
got.
my whole stage. I'm good.
Hey,
all right.
all right. That being said, the final one here.
Ooh, I'm
The
excited
legal
for-
system's
excited
rigged.
for
The
this
legal
one.
system's rigged. We see it in many different ways, and I gotta traverse this topic lightly. But that being said, the crux of the point is going to be leaning on one major case, one article here that's interesting, and timely. Elon Musk's pay package from Tesla was denied by a Delaware judge, denying him about $55 billion.
Yep.
So, a judge, what I had her name, Kathleen McCormick from Delaware, says Elon Musk must give up his compensation package awarded to him by Tesla's board of directors that is potentially worth more than $55 billion. Musk is entitled to a landmark compensation package, and the Delaware judge ruled Tuesday that it was unconscionable for him to receive this. The ruling by Chancellor Kathleen St. Jude McCormick comes more than 5 years after a shareholder lawsuit targeted Tesla CEO Musk and directors of that company. They were accused of breaching the duties to their maker of electric vehicles and solar panels, resulting in a waste of corporate assets and unjust enrichment for Elon Musk. The shareholders' lawyers argued that the compensation package should be voided because it was dictated by Musk and was the product of a sham negotiation with directors who were not independent of him. They also said it was approved by shareholders who were given misleading and incomplete disclosures in a proxy statement. On the flip side, the defense attorneys countered that the pay plan was fairly negotiated by compensation committees whose members were independent, contained performance milestones so lofty that they were ridiculed by some of Wall Street's investors, and blessed by a shareholder vote that was not even required under Delaware law. They also argued that Musk was not a controlling shareholder because he owned less than 1/3 of the company at that time. Here's some interesting takeaways. It was going to give him a 25% stake in the company, whereas now he has 13%. So it's not like he has no influence at all. November 2022, Musk denied that he dictated terms of the compensation package or attended any meetings at which the plan was discussed by the board. McCormick, the judge, determined, however, that because Musk was a controlling shareholder with a potential conflict of interest, the pay package must be subject to a more rigorous standard. Quote, the process leading to the approval of Musk's compensation plan was deeply flawed. Musk had extensive ties with the persons tasked with negotiating on Tesla's behalf. McCormick specifically cited Musk's long business and personal relationships with the compensation committee chairman and fellow committee members. She also noted that the working group working on the pay package included General Counsel Todd Marin, who is Musk's former divorce attorney. Now, just wrapping up the event here. The interesting thing that the defense attorney wanted to present, as the board claimed, the compensation package was a high-risk, high-reward deal that benefited not just Musk, but Tesla shareholders. After a plan was implemented, the value of the company climbed from $53 billion to more than $800 billion, having briefly hit $1 trillion. So if the judge's position is that it's unconscionable for him to get such a high payout, what is that on balance with? Because a $750 billion value increase surely is worth a compensation. Now let's look at this. 750 billion, or let's just, was the profit increase or value increase?
Value increase.
What's 50 of that? 50 out of 750, you're looking at what? 1/15th, right? Am I doing my math right? That's 1/15th of what he made them.
Yeah.
So the number compared to what you're making, little piddly dummy judge, yeah, 55 billion is an insane amount. But 1/15th of what I made them? Yeah, no, that's not unconscionable in my book. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So
Seems rigged.
This is a perfect example of rigging kind of on both ends. So you have Musk. So the early days, this was, I think this compensation package was negotiated about 2017, 2018, I think the article would say. And you had the cast of characters here with Elon Musk that I think included his brother. I think his brother was also part of that committee, the divorce lawyer. So there were some people that were tied pretty closely with Musk that had some influence and also had some voting shares to be able to vote in there. So I believe he really only had to convince roughly 10 to like 15% of the actual shares to get a majority stake to put this in. And I think part of what was sold is this is such a ridiculous milestone that you have to hit. And it explains a lot of
But he hit it.
He hit it. That explains a lot
It's
of his
ridiculous.
behaviors in running Tesla the way he did. Because it just seemed odd. It just seemed weird. Like, boy, you're really short selling here and not doing kind of the long-term valuations of what your company's kind of what they're trying to do. So short-term gains, long-term losses. And now it starts to make a whole lot of sense. And more people have gotten involved in the Tesla stock game. So if any of you out there who've ever tried to shorted Tesla, it hasn't gone well for you. It's not a stock that really has went down a whole bunch. It's one that is notoriously very difficult. I think if you remember the storyline of Bill Gates shorted a ton of Tesla stock, and Elon Musk tweeted out a conversation he had with Bill Gates, like, "Hey, why are you shorting a bunch of my stock?" And Bill Gates just kind of stopped talking to them at that point. Bill Gates lost money on that. Tesla's one of these very weird companies where the actual valuation of the intellectual property, everything they have, is not really worth a whole bunch compared to like Ford, GM, some of the counterparts, but just the way they've gone about it, there's so much value in mind share within like the community, and those with means usually buy Teslas. If you're
Tesla also has automated a lot of their manufacturing because an electrical car requires significantly less moving parts.
Yep.
Which is why the UAW is so strict about this strike, is because they want to make sure they're going to be safe when all these companies move to EV, because they'll need less workers to work on these cars if there are less moving parts to it.
Yeah.
Learn the code.
So we'll go into rigging. Let's put a pin in that because there's some rigging based on the electrical chargers that they put out as well. However, so let's go. What's the rigging part of the court system? So shareholders probably saw, well, it's probably not in our best interest to give $55 billion worth of either stock
And a third of influence.
To a singular person who may be sometimes a little irrational and doing things within his own best interest, not necessarily the best interest of the company. I think that's a fair statement. However, when we go into Delaware, so why is Delaware so popular amongst corporations? The judging system is very aware of business law. The infrastructure there in Delaware is a lot more adept to handle these types of cases than like a Nevada, a Texas, or even a California. Delaware's very, very good at what they do with business law. And part of that business law is they're very favorable towards shareholders. So if you've seen a lot of recent tweets from Elon Musk, he says he's even just calling out the Delaware system in general. It's like, this is rigged. This is a scam. Part of it is the scam for the shareholders or shareholder value, stakeholder value, where you see Elon trying to go to Texas and he's trying to get a favorable rulings. Well, in a way, I sympathize with them. So if I was on the hook for, if I negotiated a contract, maybe, if I kind of put my thumb on the scale a little bit for my ability to be able to get $55 billion, you know what? I'm probably going to fight that. I just bought this social media company. It's worth maybe not as much as I paid for it. And now I need to recoup some losses. Boy, I'm going to be fighting like hell to get my $55 billion. But to put this in perspective, this would be one of the single biggest transactions in history, just in general, of a singular person getting this much wealth all at a singular time.
Really?
This would be outside of like countries ruling over each other and like princes and stuff like that. As far as like actual recorded kind of valuations go, this would be up there. It has to be top 10, if not probably top 3 or top 5 of the most amount. There's no other CEO, there's no other founder, there's no other there's no comp for this, because this is just how ridiculous this is.
But okay, I bet you if you went through the history of time, eggs never cost this much either. So like this is just the trend of the world. Like if you're gonna put a ceiling on it because it's never happened before, like that's an unfortunate legal intervention that I don't find necessary, because this seems to be the trend of the world. Is Tesla worth 800 billion? Well, then 55 billion doesn't seem like a crazy number to consider whether it's to a person or to an entity. Why would this goes to show how we're just corporately influenced? Like we are just succumbed by corporations, because had this been a transaction to another corporation, we wouldn't blink twice. That's just what they do. That's what it is. It's just another entity to another entity. But because this other person operates their life like they are a corporate entity, we get all triggered. I don't know.
Well, I think this is also, it's just two rigging systems coming at each other. So you're rigging the corporate sphere. I'm rigging my shareholders. I'm rigging my company to hit these milestones, which are ridiculous. I think that if you were to go in 2018 and go, well, there's no way he's going to hit these milestones, I bet a lot of people took that bet and they got burned on the bet. Now they're going, well, this is unfair because of X, Y, Z. How much of this rigging is the shareholders going, ooh, we can't, this really isn't in the best interest of Tesla as a company to pay, again, $55 billion worth of stock options to the singular person to have all this influence. But at the same time, if I'm on the winning side of this, going, well, this singular person got us $55 billion worth of, or $750 billion worth of valuations for the stock that I currently own. If I'm an original Tesla stockholder, I'd have to imagine it's probably worth more, depending on what percentages of like Google or Apple at this point. It is wild how much this company's grown in a very short period of time. We were probably still in high school when the first Tesla came out, and that was probably right pre Elon Musk. And then after Elon Musk is when Tesla actually got sexy, popular. Right. It's an aspiration to have. They're ahead of the market for all sorts of different things. So what side of the rigging is this on? I think is really the crux of this, because the legal system can definitely be skewed one way. It's crazy how one state can view this particular situation, which should be for the most part fairly black and white based on contract law, and then to a whole different operation. So he's going to Texas because he thinks there's a district court that's going to go, actually, Musk, I think you are earned this $55 billion.
There's an interesting balance here, because yes, clearly there's intervention in the legal system. There's objective interpretations and subjective interpretations. But one thing, and this, I think I'm going to be taking the sports aspect that
Okay.
you took, and
All right.
it's I think there's so many mechanisms involved that okay, take Elmer Floyd gets murdered, right? Like that was atrocious, and it was on the front page for every person to see. At the same time, though, okay, we agree one life is too many, but accountability found itself. And I get it. We have this whole social narrative of like, yeah, all the cops get away with it all the time. I don't subscribe to that at all. But the reality is, yeah, there's people that get away with it. There's people that get away with wrongdoing.
Yep.
But in the legal system, there's appellate systems that and reviews. And guess what? I think we'd have a lot more faith in the NFL, and we'd be able to bet a lot more money with confidence on the NFL if there was this whole huge appellate process that if Sunday there was an appeal and by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're playing again Wednesday to pick up on the fourth quarter, like, hey, you've got my attention because you realize you had a bad call. That ain't going to happen. That's unconscionable. But also at the same time, that happens in the legal system. And it could be appealed 4 times, 5 times before, and it continues to go to a higher court, to a higher caliber mind, to even higher scrutiny and oversight and dissection. I think, yes, this is a flawed system, but it works. It works better than any type of system we've had in the past, and it can be better. It definitely can be better. The mechanisms and people that make the system what it is are continuously trying to make it better. They strive to make it better in a world where they're out or counterbalanced by people that have incentivized or have incentives to manipulate that and counterbalance their efforts and have some intervention. But it still transcends that because the masses, there is a virtue. There is a virtue, and it's in conflict. It's at war with bad actors, but the reality is it still transcends it. When all the dust settles, virtue transcends all of these issues because we have the ability to appeal and to continue to reconsider. You just said he might take it to Texas. He might continue to appeal it, or instead of refiling somewhere else. And all of those are options that give further reconsideration to something we may not agree with. One of the things that Doug brought to my attention today was that Gina Carano is attempting to sue Disney, or Gina Carano. Thank you.
Mandalorian star.
Right. So she was on The Mandalorian for Disney during the Summer of the Love and the heart of pandemic.
Season 2, I think.
Yeah. Well, she was on the first season as well.
She was supposed to have her own spin-off show too.
Yeah. And,
Rangers of the New Republic.
Maybe she was.
And then she was written off for the second season, during the second season. And that being said, there's this is great. Why do I bring up the Gina Carano situation? Is because ironically, Elon Musk is backing her in funding this lawsuit. There's something cool to, yeah, he might be losing money here, but this guy definitely is spending his money for the virtues of people, buying Twitter for the sake of government intervention.
Free speech.
Then because the government intervened on a social media. They were silencing people. They were blackballing people. I mean, the fact that the Twitter files comes out, he buys this thing just to release all the files to show how the government was directly working with Twitter. I mean, there's a virtue there. So while he may have lost in this legal situation, I don't think this is the end of this story itself. But it's also not the end of Elon Musk, and it ain't going to cripple him, and rightness will transcend it no matter what. Brian, comments?
Yes. Angela.
Hey.
all right.
Bambini. How do we get to the point where we are the ones rigging things for other people? Who opens the door for us? How do we get power?
Wow.
It's a loaded question.
Yeah, it's very loaded.
But see, here's what I don't like about it. I love it, but it's a very great question. But what it implies is this comes down to all of absolute power corrupts absolutely, right?
I agree.
And so what do you get from powerful people? What is the common narrative of people in power? Well, that is a bad actor in power. If I was the one in power, I'd be good, and I would bring virtue. I mean, just so you know, No evil villain in this world actually chose evil. Hitler thought what he was doing was good. In his lens of goodness, it was good. It took the macroscopic view we all take of like, no, in fact, it was the exact opposite. But to him, that was a good virtue. So the scary part in Angela's question is the assumption that, well, just open the door for me. Get me in there. Give me the power. I'll be a better arbiter than, the dead guy at the helm of the White House now. Well, okay, maybe that's not the answer either. Kind of back to our point about information and the manipulation of science and rigging facts and numbers. I think the answer to this is the same as it always has been: decentralization. Yeah. I mean, this is something I truly wrestle with. I haven't passed the bar yet. Okay, well, I go to a place every day where there are attorneys that you're like, how in the hell do you have a license? You're one of the dumbest people I've ever met in my life. But he's this brilliant bookworm that traversed the book perfectly, but also is a total idiot. At the same time, though, you could have on balance. I'm not going to say myself, but I'm sure there's plenty of people that just can't sit in a room 8 hours a day, 2 days in a row, memorizing a book. Just give me the book and I'll be the best for you, advocating on your behalf. But I'm not a memorizer. I'm sure there's people that are like that.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I say do away with the bars of entry, the gatekeeping. I've said in the show before, there is nobody I trust more on this planet with my well-being than my father. And it should be alarming to us that if the state wanted to intrude on my liberty, it would be illegal to have my dad represent my interests in that courtroom because he's not a licensed attorney. I need to have a licensed attorney. So the person on this planet that has my best interests at heart, I can't even have represent me. So the flip side of that, the solve to that problem is, well, let everybody be an attorney. But then you'll have the perfect serpent tongue, the snake oil salesman that swindles old ladies and sounds like a great guy, but is a complete buffoon and is, duping everybody out here. So what is the takeaway from that metaphor? Well, okay, concession is there's a need for that license, the bar, a standardization. But then who gets to be the arbiter of that? Who draws that line? How do we know it's right and fair? Well, that becomes another question. So a lot of this comes down to, unfortunately, because for 2,000, 3,000 years, we failed at trying to figure out the best way of doing this. This is the best, but I don't think we've conquered the problem, which is the Greeks' inquiry of democracy. Like, how do we get everybody's will represented? Not every will needs to win. Not every will needs to control. But how do we keep all the wills represented? So in a scenario like this, like a legal system, I mean, let me ask you guys this. I'm going to throw it to the room. Anybody here seen Orville? There's a really good episode where they go to this new planet. They beam down and land on this planet.
They don't beam down. They take a shuttle, by the way.
Okay, Doug, shut the fuck
Beam
up.
me up, Scotty.
Yeah, you're thinking Star Trek.
Anyway. So we go to this planet.
So you go to the planet. You go to this planet.
All right.
They beam down to this planet. They arrive at the planet. And the one guy in the crew climbs up on this statue in the middle of the city. And he's like swinging around on it. And he's like, ha, 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 look at me. I'm all silly. And like, it was like China where like all the people are just like robots walking in lines. They're all over. And they all just like stop. And they all pull out their phones. They all start recording this guy dancing on the statue. And this is this huge major transgression. And they're all super alarmed. And it became this huge problem. And then the guy gets arrested. And then the way these people live their lives is, okay, so this was some transgression, right? Like they can't hear you. So it was some major transgression. And they arrested him because this is some violation of, sanctity of government property, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The way they vote, like the way they determined the legality of a person's action is it was on an international television and sent to everybody. And everybody in their kitchen had a TV. green yes, red no. Guy pled his case, like, you know, and it was a show, like a show host, like the Tonight Show. And they're like, so here's the scenario. And then the guy's like pleading his case. And then it goes to the screen and everybody pulls out their little iPhone and they decide yes or no. I mean, I don't love that. And again, it comes back to like our voting. Like now I'm just having blind faith that the technology works and doesn't have some bias coded into it or can be manipulated. But truthfully, the answer is something like that. Like we want us all involved. But what's funny is I can't even get 12 of you ass clowns to show up to be a jury of your peers. But you know, that's the biggest burden. Your duty to our society and our civility, that's even a major burden to you. But I'm going to sit here and pretend I could get you to weigh in on every issue.
Yeah, you want the will of the majority, but to protect the rights of the minority
Right.
is the way currently our systems work. And I think probably the best system as we've conceptualized it right now. There's obviously flaws with with the representative system, but definitely when we've gone more direct democracy, it becomes emotional. Just look at social media and how we react to breaking news and how we would vote to breaking news versus we just need to let the story evolve just a little bit. Just give it 24 hours to evolve. And next thing you know, like, oh, okay, maybe it wasn't quite what the news said or wasn't quite what I initially thought as new information came out. So yeah, there's a rigging in that style of process. And just even in that type of democracy, there's a way to rig that in and itself.
I could agree. Dougie.
So with that Orville episode, which I do love that show, both as a Seth MacFarlane and a Star Trek fan, but that also is very, very similar to a Black Mirror episode where there's a society where they do almost the same thing. And watching both of those come out around the same time to each other, different creators, I actually worry, are we getting to the point where social media will be our justice system? I mean, it is a terrible thought because those things were so realistic, aligned to our current society where social media is law. And to circle back to the Gina Carino thing, you know, she made a post that some people would think was logical. You know, the political hate is comparable to the Nazis, Jew propaganda, but she gets banned for that. But then like Mark Hamill and Pedro Pascal can make comments about Trump comparing him to Hitler, and that was okay.
Right.
You know, it's just this whole thing of like social media runs our lives, and based on how it's presented to you, algorithm, stats, whatever, it's how it's presented to you that you believe that. And so that Orville episode, they're saying, oh, you know, the announcers like, oh, this guy's did this and this. They're pushing you to the conclusion they want you to make.
Well, I think we've always had that. There's, you know, probably, have you ever seen Gone Girl? Was been well, so part of it, like back in like cable television, you had to win the public opinion. You still have to win that, even if the public opinion doesn't have a vote in your criminal trial. It's like kind of how OJ got off a little bit.
Yeah.
Is he won the public, and did he previously win the public behind his
Interesting.
play and his commentating? Yeah, but there's you always have to have the public on your side if you're really going to have any sort of shot at winning this, unless you're insurmountable evidence that you are innocent within the situation that you're in. But social media is just the evolution of that. Now it just reacts a lot quicker, and that's where I think the fear is as well. Can you get encompassed by the mob before you have the ability to be able to tell your story, and for that to be the narrative? You got to be able to own the narrative. It's kind of it's like a snake in the frog situation.
So you're talking about that, and Alex ironically mentioned like jury duty. I'm called for jury duty soon, and I'm not happy about it. I don't really want to do it,
bitch ass.
but like if I
public
end up
service.
getting on the jury, obviously I'll do it. I don't want to. I'm taking time off work. It hurts me in a way that I'm missing work and more work for me. But like the Black Mirror and Orville, where people are voting based on social media. You know, like people don't want to be called for jury duty. Like my parents are like, I'd love to be called. You know, I'm
That's my
retired. What
sister.
the hell? I've been called twice in 8 years. They haven't been called in decades. So I don't get how that works. How they're choosing the jurors, I think could use some change. Maybe ask them if they want to be a juror. You know, that's one thing.
Oh.
But
But
we're
half of
getting
my
to the
peers
point-
don't want to, and it's supposed to be my
Exactly.
peers, so it's got to
Yeah.
reflect even the people that don't want
So
to.
we're getting to
gotta
the point where
reflect.
people don't want to.
That's
That's
too
even
bad.
scarier that this whole social media voting for jury could be realistic because people don't want to show up. Like, why not just sit at home and vote versus having to go down to the courthouse?
Because you would
to
at
serve?
least need an ID. Angela?
Yes.
Angela, what do we
Angela
got?
said,
You get my point, though.
before Doug made that point, social media is basically determining innocent or guilty. And
Yeah.
she also said Amanda Knox was innocent. The court of public opinion would say otherwise.
So riddle me this, Alex. I heard a statistic where a lot of the jurors are public employees. They're government employees because they're able to take that time off. Is that? Can you corroborate that a little bit?
Technically,
I would not say
anyone
yes
can
to that.
take jury duty.
So
Every job
well,
I've
I've
ever
heard-
been at.
I have heard that
mean,
the most jurors
Maybe for a day.
are public employees because the government can't fire you for being on a juror where you what
No company.
No,
can.
it's
no,
not. You're
no
just
company can.
government. You're protected by the government. Your employer can't fire you.
yeah, the employer can't fire you, but the government. So I think the difference becomes like, well, yeah, I work at the state house. I'm not part of the legal system at all, but I'm called for jury duty. Everyone in the state house knows, all right, he's called for jury duty. It's fine. It's not going to affect his work where, Doug, you're at in your position. Well, God, if you're gone for, like an O.J. Simpson trial, you're gone for months. This is a significant amount of time away from your job and away from your work. And that's going to affect you negatively. So a lot of people who are picking jurors know that just pick the government employees because it's not as impactful in their career as it would be for someone else in the private industry. Are you saying that's probably not that's not replicated in your anecdotal?
Yeah, I wouldn't say
I can
necessarily.
tell
wouldn't
you
say
my
that? Okay.
company cannot legally fire me
Right.
for serving on a jury. Now,
Yeah, they can't
every
fire
company
you.
has their own policies where, like, at one job, I couldn't get paid for jury duty. I had to take the jury pay of whatever $25 a day,
Yep.
like less than I would have made. But in my current company, they'll pay me for jury duty, but I can't take the jury pay.
I got
But
flipped
but they can't.
out at by this lady today. She flipped out at me, going $6. She was maybe there for a half hour. $6? That is insulting. I make more in one day. I left work $6. I go, ma'am, this was a court order. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, you're lucky you got $6 because jail is what happens if
You
you
only
don't
get
show
$6.
up.
Do they prorate
Well, this was
jury
a
duty?
subpoena to show up for
Oh,
work.
It's a whole.
Well,
Um,
see, like with mine, like I get jury pay for X amount of days, up to 5 days. Anything after 5, I have to take PTO. They can't fire me
Yeah.
though, and if I had no PTO, I'd go on paid. But they cannot, from my understanding, legally fire you for jury duty.
They cannot-
But whether or not you get paid is up to your company.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the big
And
thing.
I'm
There's
the
like
only
there's
one
just
who does my
consequences.
position, so taking off makes more work for me. Like it's not
Yeah.
beneficial to me to miss work because it's more work for me. Like if I take PTO, I'm planning for that. Jury
No.
duty is
But
just
you're pretending like I give a shit about any of this inconvenience to
Well,
you.
they don't.
No. I don't
They
care
don't.
about your money. No, not they. I don't. I don't care about your money loss. I don't care about how this backs up your work. I don't care about how this inconveniences your life, how you have to go 20 miles or 10, 20 minutes longer on your drive than before. Let me emphasize, I couldn't care less because whatever burden, no matter how long you need to make that list, regardless of it, that list and its entirety is the cost of living in a civil society.
Oh,
So
yeah.
as long as you don't want to get robbed walking down the street or shanked when your mouth just keeps running, then you need to respect the fact that laws are amazing. We need them. They could always get better. We have their flaws, but the cost, all of that cost, is so you don't get stabbed when you because we want to live with other people. I'm sorry. I hope that list gets longer. And then I'm also going to say that's still even more the cost necessary to live in a safe and prosperous society. That's the only way we're all neighbors and we're not stealing from each other or ganging up to steal from somebody else's gang.
You have accountability for your actions.
At the end of the
100%.
day, I think we're federally protected to serve on
Yes,
jury duty. That's where
1000%.
That's where the conversation was going.
All right, we're not. We can't flush that out anymore. I don't even know why that's an inquiry.
Yeah,
Let's emphasize, double down. That conversation is done. You
We're done.
cannot get fired from serving on the jury.
Back to all, nonetheless, people don't want to. That was
and I
people
hope
don't want to,
I
which
don't
is
care.
why it's scary that these.
What do you not
shows
want
made
more?
That social media jury wait.
What do
'cause
you
that
not
is
want more?
Very realistic.
Do you want to get stabbed or do you want to serve on a jury? Like,
I'd rather,
I don't want either,
I
but
agree.
guess what?
I'd rather serve on jury. But it's scary, the realisticness that most people don't want to, and they're willing to like get out of it any way possible. Which I would like to.
I mean, it
trust
depends
me,
on
but,
how
like,
long I'm on that
it's
jury
scary that
for.
social media could become our jury eventually. It is very scary. Yet
It already
also
is.
realistic.
That's kind of like Angela's point. Like, where there is the jury of your peers, and that is what it infects the courtroom more than anything else. You want to flip it to Ricky?
What do we got for you, Ricky?
So the jury thing, right? I don't want to be on a jury like the people on YSL trial right now. That's been going for 6 months and it's supposed to go for another year. Cause I understand you can't get fired in this, but I can be homeless. I can after a certain while, your bank account is gonna start draining. Like,
Well, hold on. Now
what-
that we
what-
want to really, now we're back in the weeds of jury duty. God damn it.
yeah, I'm
Let's
sorry,
be
but
real
like
clear
there are
here.
people right now
Just into it.
serving,
So
gonna
if
be
you're
on a
going
jury
to
for
a
a month and a
municipal court,
year and a half.
if you're
Uh-huh.
going to a municipal court for an afternoon or a couple days, 1 week out of the entire, like
Oh, that's
one time
that's
for
cool.
a week, you're going to get paid probably $25 a day. That's how the jury looks. You're getting $25 a day. But to what Ricky's talking about, like a year and a
Yeah,
year and a
bro.
half, higher level courts than your local municipal court, the laws are different. You're not getting
But it's a
paid
state
$25
RICO.
a day. In fact, the state matches what you would be making at your job.
Ah,
So your
okay,
job
okay.
isn't paying. So again, they can't legally
And
fire
most
you
people
or
don't get
bitch. And then guess what? You're getting paid everything you would have. And so your rent doesn't, your lifestyle doesn't change. And now guess what? You get to live on the hog luxury of you're a professional juror for the next year and a half.
Got you,
That sounds
got
even
you,
more
got you.
cush.
That's yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, but that's good to know. And the other thing I had to say is, I don't remember who I heard this from. Probably more than likely Charlemagne the God, but he says, "Public don't care about the truth, as long as the lie is more entertaining."
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, that
So,
cuts deep.
yeah.
That hurts. I don't know. There's truth
So
to
if
that.
There's some
it will carry, the jury's
I mean,
not
think
the
about,
jury's
like-
not supposed to hear what's going on in court. You know what I mean? So, but even if you are found innocent, when you come back out, like especially if you're a public figure, there's not going to be as much door you have open have you had before.
I mean, when people bring up crazy conspiracies, one that the people often reference is how the birds are CIA robots and they land
birds
on
are not real.
the electrical lines and charge themselves. Well, okay, that stuff. Doug is literally spitting up his beard.
I know, because that was pretty funny. I hadn't heard that one, and that one made me.
You haven't heard that
that?
one? Oh wow.
I had heard that but then the jumping on the lines to charge themselves.
Well, how else are they going to power
Well, so
themselves?
again, there's no logic in this. The whole thing's crazy. It's all insanity. But to Ricky's point from Charlemagne, like, there's some truth there. Like, we sometimes are going to subscribe to the juicier story just because there's more fun to it. And there's probably a lot of people that are entertaining something as ridiculous as that more than they probably should, simply because it's juicy, it's fun. Even if it's not true, it's silly.
My NFL team didn't win. So you know what? The fucking NFL's rigged.
Yeah, they.
And if the Taylor Swift went to a couple more Browns games, I think the Browns have a lot more success.
I agree. I agree. Are there comments you wanted to throw up, Bri, before we wrap?
Nope, everything is
thoughts up?
rigged.
Everything is rigged. I love it. I
Even
love
the
it.
comments.
All right. So, wrapping thoughts is this. I think, yes, you will find areas where the legal system is equally as rigged as all the other fields that we've talked about in today's episode. I do want to acknowledge, though, that I have more faith in this system than any of the others that we've referenced, simply because there's higher oversight and more intervention. You can always appeal. And so while this may be the end of the line for now, for Elon Musk's $55 billion payout package, at the same time, I do imagine, and clearly he's taken it other routes. He's going to Texas. He may appeal to a higher court. So the reality is it's not the end of the road, and that's the virtue in a system where maybe things may be rigged, maybe there may be systems, cards stacked against you. There's always a way for other reconsideration or an appeal. So I don't know.
Your faith in one of our government institutions is infallible. Boy, this is an ironclad argument you have for the prosperity of our government, and you're going to
do that to me. Huh?
I think we got
anything like my nature.
We got two really good clips of you just you're damn near a Democrat going through and throwing it up there. I'm proud of you. I just want to give a round of applause for this
Clap,
this is wonderful. I'm glad you're starting to see the government is effective sometimes, maybe not all the time, but sometimes. And you're definitely, you might be a better spokesperson than I am for this. So as far as the rigging nature, I think I might have an opposite opinion of you on this. For once, I'm on the other side of this. I think there is, in smaller municipal courts, I think there, when we start trajectorying power and influence to less and less amount of people, the more influence they have, the more corruptible they are. I think with the Supreme Court, it's probably a good example that it's based more on politics versus policy or the nature of the Supreme Court. But I think that's an easy one. That's a low-hanging fruit. As we start getting closer towards municipal courts, and when we start seeing like how crime rates are judged upon based on the individual versus kind of the action they do, I think there is something to be said that, you're 13, you're going out and you stole a Kia.
Yeah.
Isn't that topical? But should that ruin your life forever because you made a dumb mistake because you're basically stupid at that point?
Wait, but that's a problem with the lawmakers and not the law enforcers, right?
Okay, but don't the law enforcers either go, you're going to jail, or you're off?
Well, you know what? That's why I don't like that word. They're the law interpreters, right? So they don't make the law; they interpret the law.
Okay, so I think sometimes the interpretation of the law based on the person and or entourage they have around them can change wildly.
Sure.
Based on the given law. I'd like to see a bit more consistency on that end. So I think there is some rigging on that front. But I do, in agreement to you, I think as a general practice, I think most try, and I say try, to be blind towards the law and blind towards the individual they are prosecuting and or judging and or adjudicating. But it's not a perfect system. We're trying to make it better, and I hope those that are in power are I think law, more so than most other places in government, is grassroots. Because it comes, you gain notoriety from being in the system. People in the system know you, recognize you, and take you more seriously. But with like Spider-Man, or like with
like Spider-Man,
Ben Parker, not Spider-Man, says, great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be in our law system here, Mr. Gergat, when you pass that bar, you got to you got to carry that weight with a little extra forethought. Remember some of these speeches. If I swear to God, if I see you adjudicate someone, say, just because Elon Musk out there, I'm gonna throw these clips up here. I'm gonna throw this right at you. Like, I'm gonna protest with the video protest board.
I like that. That being said, Ricky, do you have any rapping thoughts on the topic, or everything's rigged, or rapping topics?
Sports is not rigged. Government is rigged.
I like it.
I feel like the government is more rigged than sports. You put out a video I feel like a year and a half ago, when the man came on camera, was like, there's like 200 DUI and about so many abuse, and you bet you can't tell me what profession this is. Is it athletes? No, it's the congressman and
Yeah.
women.
So the video he's talking about, he goes, all right, I want you to guess. Am I talking about the NBA or the NFL? And he goes through and he's like, there's X amount of, sexual assaults, X amount of, whatever abuses, DUIs, thefts, cyber, whatever. Goes through all of these lists of infractions, and you're got your knee-jerk reaction of what it could be, and he goes, it's neither. This is all of your politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said there, Rich.
Yeah. So it's like, I believe more in sports. I know. Let me not say that. I was about to say some BS, but
Brown has more integrity than Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
chill out. But no, but like, it's good to be a skeptic. It's good to keep your eyes open and yours open even more. It's good to be a skeptic and look into more stuff than you see on surface level, because nowadays, especially with AI coming on and everything, you never know who's really saying something, who wrote this. Like, you never know what's really going on. So for your own sanity and not look like a clown out here, take a step back and just look into shit. Oh, sorry. Look into stuff more, Don't just jump to conclusion, because clickbait gonna have you looking like you got doo-doo on your face.
I can appreciate that.
Can't have that.
Brian, rapping thoughts?
Yes. So I liked where you were going initially with the strong character and virtue. Freedom of power without corruption is a paradox. It's pretty difficult to maintain that balance. And David, I think the word you were looking for is circumstantial interpreter.
Yes, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's all I got.
That being said, we appreciate you all listening to us. Let me thank my good friend in the green room that joined us for the whole episode. Check
Ricky.
out Just Another Day TV and my good friend Ricky from the channel with a whole lot of content coming your way now. Ricky, tell them where they can find you.
Just Another Day TV everywhere, anywhere. I just won't be in your mom's underwear. All right.
Yo.
Nice.
Thank you,
I
Alex.
love
Thank you,
that.
boys. Great episode, man.
Thank you.
Love
Rick.
I
you,
appreciate
Ricky.
y'all. Another week.
You joining us, and thank you for your time, my friend. That being said, everybody, thanks for joining us. We go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. The purpose of going live is to get you involved. We're talking about crazy things. We're talking about hard-hitting issues, real life. And the only way to make it impactful and give it some weight is to get you involved. We want to have a lot of different perspectives and a lot of balance to this. And the best way to accomplish that is getting you involved. So please jump down into the comments. That being said, if you like the show or if we made you laugh or if we made you think, the best thing you can do to support the show is share the clip. If you liked it, that means somebody else probably will too. So please take that clip and spread it on your social media, text it to friends, because that's what helps us out the most. We gave you a good long 2 hours, 2.5 hours of solid content. And the best way to give back on our hard efforts and everything is to share the link. That being said, we didn't have the opportunity to do it today because we were expecting Sophia. Then, we didn't really expect the show to be our regular day program. But next week, we're getting back to the wheel of topics. We're going to be bringing in the wheel right here into the center of the room. And we want you guys to feed us topics where me and David can rip it and get you guys to kind of have an influence on the trajectory of the show. What do you want to see us talking about? So the best way and the only way to do that is to get involved on our website. So all of our content is on our website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. Brian and I do a live show on Sundays, a reactions channel where we check out funny videos on the internet. And that being said, when you go to our website, you can find every channel you need, from the Rethink Tank where you're watching us now to the reactions channel where you can find us on Sundays, or even the clips where we break down all these deep, long conversations into bite-sized pieces. All of our channels can be found right there on our website, right on top. Go there, check it out. That being said, guys, thank you for watching. We want you to join in on the Wheel of Topics. So head on over to the Neuro Gym on our website, become a member, and give us topics. It's an open forum. Brian posted it last week. It's there, ripe and ready for you to give us some topic ideas. So head on over to the Neuro Gym to get involved. Otherwise, guys, thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next Tuesday live, 7 p.m. Peace.
Peace.